Imagine walking through a world where time has left its mark, yet the story remains incomplete. Monuments rise from the earth like echoes of a civilization we can barely comprehend. Towering stones, perfectly aligned and impossibly heavy, stand silently under the sun, while underground cities stretch for miles beneath the ground, hidden from our eyes. Who built them? Why? And how, with tools and knowledge we can scarcely imagine, did they craft these structures with such precision? Across continents, from sun-baked deserts to misty islands, ancient constructions defy explanation. Some whisper of astronomical knowledge far ahead of their era. Others hint at rituals, power, or technologies that vanished with their creators. Every shadowed chamber, every massive stone, seems to pulse with unanswered questions, daring us to uncover the truth. Tonight, we journey into the forgotten corners of history, where human ingenuity and mystery intertwine. We'll explore sites that have puzzled archaeologists for centuries and marvel at creations that challenge everything we thought we knew about our past. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the extraordinary world of ancient structures that still remain unexplained. In the arid foothills of the western Andes, where the desert meets the whisper of the Pacific wind, there lies a place both haunting and magnificent: Chankillo. The land stretches out in muted shades of gold and bone white, a landscape stripped bare by time. From the crest of a dry ridge, 13 towers rise in a jagged line across the horizon, their silhouettes cutting against the relentless sun. They seem almost alive, watching, waiting, measuring something eternal. At first glance, Chankillo appears as little more than a weathered ruin, stones eroded by centuries of silence. But look closer, and a strange precision reveals itself. The 13 towers are evenly spaced, standing along a north-south ridge, flanked by 2 observation platforms at either end. From these vantage points, the sun performs an ancient dance. At the solstices, it rises and sets behind the outermost towers, and over the months it travels between them, marking the slow rhythm of the year. This is not coincidence. It is design, deliberate, exact, and astonishingly advanced. Archaeologists believe the complex was constructed more than 2,300 years ago by the people of the Chasma Sechin culture. Yet beyond those dry facts, much remains a mystery. Why would an early civilization in the Peruvian desert devote such immense effort to tracking the sun? The observatory predates the famous Inca sun cults by nearly 2 millennia, suggesting that long before Cusco rose to prominence, another culture was already mapping the heavens with architectural precision. The main complex near the towers, known as the Fortified Temple, raises even more questions. 3 concentric walls encircle its summit, as though meant for protection, yet there is little evidence of warfare. No water source lies within its walls. Its many entrances make it a poor fortress. If not built for battle, then for what? Was this an observatory, a sanctuary, or perhaps both? A place where science and ceremony met under the blazing sky. The most accepted explanation sees Chankillo as an early solar calendar. The ancient observers could have used it to determine the changing seasons, vital for agriculture, ritual, and survival in this harsh landscape. At a glance, the towers may have told them when to plant, when to harvest, when to call upon the gods for rain. But there is a deeper resonance to this alignment. The sun, for these people, was more than a celestial body. It was a living force, the giver and taker of life. Each sunrise and sunset across the towers may have carried sacred meaning. Each beam of light, a message from the divine. Imagine the dawn of the solstice, 2,000 years ago. The first rays cresting over the easternmost tower, golden light washing across the valley, a priest standing in silhouette, arms raised toward the reborn sun. Still, the mystery endures. Some have suggested that Chankillo's builders possessed astronomical knowledge far beyond what was thought possible for their time, an understanding not just of the solar year, but of celestial mechanics and horizon geometry. Others see symbolism woven through its design, the 13 towers as representations of solar deities, or even as a reflection of duality, day and night, life and death, creation and decay. And then there are the fringe interpretations, quieter, more speculative. Could the towers have marked not just the sun, but also lunar cycles or planetary paths? Were they part of a larger network of sacred sites aligned across the Peruvian desert? Or did they serve as a monumental clock, measuring something we have yet to recognize? Not just time, but perhaps power, authority, or connection between earth and sky? Walking among the ruins, one feels the weight of millennia pressing down. The air is thin and dry, the silence absolute except for the sigh of the desert wind. Stones crumble softly underfoot. From the western platform, as the sun descends toward the sea, its final rays touch each tower in turn. A golden sequence of light and shadow that has repeated for over 2,000 years. The precision still holds. The message still lingers, though its meaning has faded with the culture that conceived it. We know Chankillo functioned between roughly 250 and 200 BCE. We know its builders tracked the sun with uncanny accuracy, within a day or two of the solstices. We know it stands as one of humanity's earliest complete solar observatories. But beyond that, the record is blank. The rituals once performed here have vanished. The prayers, the songs, the reasons, all erased by wind and time. Perhaps that is the truest mystery of Chankillo, not what it measured, but why it mattered so deeply. What drove its builders to carve their knowledge into stone and align it with the heavens? Was it devotion, necessity, or something we no longer have words for? As the last light fades behind the final tower, the desert returns to silence. The ancient stones seem to breathe again, watching as they always have, patient, enduring, waiting for the next sunrise. And you can't help but wonder, what secrets of the sun still lie hidden in those 13 shadows?
As the journey through humanity's forgotten monuments continues, we leave the sun-baked deserts of Peru and cross half a world, to the windswept mountains of southern Siberia. Here, surrounded by silence and solitude, lies another enigma, carved from the intersection of nature and time. In the midst of a frozen lake, on a small island in Tuva, stands a place the locals call Por-Bazhyn, clay house. From the air, its geometric precision is startling. A near-perfect rectangle, almost 800 by 400 feet, its walls rising in clean, deliberate lines from the marshy waters of Lake Terejol. In winter, the lake hardens into a mirror of ice. In summer, mist clings to its edges. And in every season, the ruins seem to hover between worlds, too symmetrical to be a natural formation, too isolated to belong easily to human hands. Archaeologists describe Por-Bazhyn as one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in all of Asia. Its outer walls, built from rammed clay and timber, enclose a complex of courtyards, corridors, and foundations that once supported intricately decorated wooden structures. Yet its age, purpose, and the identity of its builders remain uncertain, veiled in a confusion of history, geology, and myth. The most accepted theory places its construction around the 8th century CE, during the height of the Uyghur Khaganate, a nomadic empire that once ruled the steppes of Central Asia. Some scholars believe Por-Bazhyn was a summer palace or fortress, built under the reign of the Uyghur ruler Bayanchur Khan. Others suggest it was a monastery or temple, influenced by Chinese architecture. its plan echoing the symmetry and design of Tang dynasty palaces. But if that's true, another question arises. Why here? The site sits at nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, in one of the most remote and inhospitable regions on Earth. Winters last for most of the year. Temperatures can plunge below -40. There are no major trade routes nearby, no fertile fields to sustain a large population. The lake itself, though beautiful, offers no easy access to surrounding land. Building here would have been an extraordinary logistical challenge. So what purpose could justify such an effort? For decades, researchers assumed Por-Bazhyn was a fortress, a defensive stronghold meant to guard some forgotten frontier. But when excavations began in the early 2000s, they revealed something strange. There were no signs of battle, no weapons, no arrowheads, no graves. The walls, though formidable, were hollow, built more for form than for function. The layout inside was not that of a garrison, but a ceremonial or residential complex. And then came an even deeper mystery. It seems the site was barely used at all. Beneath layers of collapsed earth, archaeologists found little evidence of long-term habitation. No hearths, no refuse pits, few artifacts of daily life. It appears Por-Bazhyn was occupied for only a short period, perhaps a decade, perhaps less, before being abandoned to the Siberian elements. Some theorists point to the region's geology for answers. Lake Terekol sits atop a tectonically active fault zone. Cores taken from beneath the island reveal layers of ash and deformation, signs of earthquakes and shifting ground. Could seismic activity have damaged the complex soon after its construction? Did the builders flee when the very earth beneath them began to tremble? Others wonder if Por-Bazhyn was never meant to endure. Perhaps it was built as a symbolic gesture, a monument to imperial power or spiritual devotion, rather than a functioning city. In this interpretation, its isolation was part of its meaning. A palace suspended between earth and sky, the mortal and the divine. There are clues that point toward a spiritual dimension. The inner structures show traces of lacquered wood, vivid pigments, and stylized motifs more typical of temples than military outposts. The symmetry of the design, the perfect balance of east and west, north and south, reflects cosmological principles central to both Buddhist and pre-Buddhist steppe beliefs. Some suggest Por-Bazhyn may have served as a sacred retreat, a place for initiation or celestial observation. And yet, other possibilities linger at the edges. Legends among the Tuvan people speak of a city that rose and fell in a single night, a cursed palace swallowed by the lake for reasons long forgotten. Could those stories preserve a distant memory of catastrophe? An earthquake, a flood, a collapse so sudden that it entered the realm of myth. More recently, ice core and tree ring studies have revealed evidence of a massive volcanic eruption in 775 CE, which may have altered climate across Eurasia. Some researchers propose that a cooling event following the eruption could have frozen the region's soil and contributed to Por-Bazhyn's abandonment. The builders may have faced an environment rapidly turning hostile, the lake rising, the ground cracking, the winters lengthening. If so, Por-Bazhyn may stand as a monument not only to human ambition, but to nature's quiet reclamation. And then, of course, there are the fringe interpretations, those that see in Por-Bazhyn something beyond recorded history, a remnant of an earlier civilization, perhaps, erased from memory, or a site chosen not for political or religious reasons, but for its precise alignment with the stars. From certain angles, the fortress's walls seem to form geometric patterns with the surrounding peaks, as if the builders had mapped not only the landscape, but the heavens themselves. Could Por-Bazhyn have been part of a larger, forgotten network of sacred or astronomical sites stretching across the steppes? Standing on the frozen lake today, the air sharp and still, one can see why such questions persist. The silence feels absolute. The mountains form a pale wall against the horizon, and within the rectangle of ruins, time itself seems suspended. The clay bricks, once red and smooth, now crumble softly underfoot. The walls, half buried, form shadows that shift with the sun. patterns of geometry and decay. From a distance, the island seems to float, a mirage of human intent upon a mirror of water and ice. In that isolation lies its allure. Por-Bazhyn is a puzzle that refuses to resolve, a whisper from a forgotten chapter of the human story. Was it a temple? A fortress? A dream in clay that dissolved too soon? No inscription tells its tale. No text names its creator. Only the cold wind moves through its corridors now, and the quiet echo of something that once stood radiant, purposeful, and alive. And as dusk settles over the Siberian plateau, the ruins glow faintly in the fading light, their shapes dissolving into the mist like memory itself. You can almost feel the question hanging there, in the stillness between worlds. What truth lies buried beneath the clay walls of Por-Bazhyn? And how much of it will we ever truly understand? From the desolate Siberian plateau and the silent ruins of Por-Bazhyn, our journey now turns west, across the vast sweep of Eurasia, into the rugged heart of southeastern Turkey. Here, where mountains pierce the sky and the air carries the scent of dry stone and ancient wind, another mystery rises, a mountain of kings, a monument to ambition, divinity, and forgotten dreams. Mount Nemrut. At dawn, the first light spills across its summit like liquid gold, revealing colossal stone faces gazing toward eternity. Their expressions are calm, almost human, yet distant, as though carved to outlast both worship and decay. Eagles and lions flank them. The heads of gods, once towering upon thrones, now rest scattered across the gravel slope, severed from their colossal bodies by the slow collapse of centuries. From a distance, the entire mountain seems unnatural. A massive conical mound of crushed stone, nearly 50 meters high, rising above the surrounding peaks. It's not a volcano, nor a natural formation, but a man-made tumulus, built over 2,000 years ago at the command of a single man, King Antiochus I of Commagene. Antiochus ruled a small but wealthy kingdom that once stood at the crossroads of civilizations, where the Greco-Roman world met the Persian empires of the East. His dynasty, and perhaps his ego, sought to bridge those worlds. Around 62 BCE, he ordered the construction of this mountain sanctuary, blending Greek artistry with Persian mysticism. The gods here wear both Greek and Persian names: Zeus Oromasdes, Apollo Mithras, Heracles Artagnes, a divine fusion carved into limestone. The monument is divided into terraces, eastern, western, and northern, each aligned with the path of the sun. The great seated figures, once 30 feet tall, were arranged in rows facing sunrise and sunset, as though keeping silent watch over both day and night. Between them stood the king himself, carved among the gods, seated as their equal. Beneath the mound, it is said, lies his tomb, though no one has ever found it. Archaeologists have studied Mount Nemrut for over a century, yet the true purpose of the site remains elusive. Was it truly a royal burial, a temple, a celestial observatory, or something altogether more enigmatic, a message to the heavens? No chamber has ever been discovered beneath the stone peak. Ground-penetrating surveys hint at cavities and chambers deep within, but the rubble mound, millions of tons of crushed limestone, conceals all. Attempts to excavate risk destabilizing the entire structure, so the heart of Mount Nemrut remains sealed, its secrets locked in silence. Antiochus left inscriptions describing his devotion to the gods and his wish for eternal remembrance. He proclaimed that his sanctuary was a place of communion between mortals and the divine, where the boundary between earth and sky was thinnest. Some scholars interpret this as symbolic, a mountaintop stage for rituals, sacrifices, and astronomical observations. Others wonder if the king truly believed that through these colossal effigies, his soul would merge with the heavens. But there are other details, subtle, puzzling, that invite further thought. The terraces appear deliberately aligned with key celestial events. The eastern terrace faces the sunrise at the summer solstice, while the western aligns with sunset at the winter solstice. Some researchers suggest that Mount Nemrut may have served as a kind of celestial calendar, marking the passage of the sun through the year, just as Chankillo did half a world away. The gods and their placements, the lion reliefs studded with stars. Perhaps these were not mere decorations, but cosmic symbols, mapping constellations known to ancient priests and astrologers. The most famous of these reliefs, the lion horoscope, shows a sky filled with celestial signs. The constellation: Leo, a crescent moon and 3 prominent stars, believed to represent Jupiter, Mercury, and Mars. If interpreted as an astronomical event, this alignment might date to July 7th, 62 BCE, the very year the sanctuary was founded. Was this an intentional cosmic signature, a way of marking the heavens as witness to the king's eternal rule? Beyond astronomy, Mount Nemrut holds an atmosphere of something grander, or older. The tumulus itself, so vast and so precisely shaped, resembles earlier Near Eastern ziggurats, or even the stepped pyramids of distant lands. Could Antiochus have drawn inspiration from ancient Mesopotamian temples designed to connect heaven and earth? Or was this simply his attempt to recreate the sacred mountains of myth, a man-made Olympus in the remote frontier of his realm? Some theorists suggest the site's origins may predate Antiochus himself. Beneath layers of later construction, fragments of older stonework hint at possible reuse, the mountain perhaps chosen long before as a sacred place. Local legends speak of an older god who once slept beneath the summit, a guardian spirit of the mountain awakened only by kings. The region, after all, has been a crossroads for millennia, where Hittites, Persians, and Greeks all left their mark. And then there are the more speculative whispers that Mount Nemrut was not merely a tomb or temple, but a message, a monument built to be seen from the sky. From above, its shape, its alignments, even its placement amid surrounding ridges create patterns that seem deliberate, almost geometric. Could it have been designed with the heavens in mind, meant to be read not by human eyes, but by something or someone looking down from above? The air atop Mount Nemrut is thin and clear. Standing there at dawn, it's easy to feel the sense of otherworldliness the builders must have intended. The great stone heads, bathed in orange light, appear alive again, their gaze fixed on horizons beyond our comprehension. You feel small beneath them, not just in scale, but in time. These stones have watched empires rise and fall. They have seen the silence of centuries. And yet, their story is still incomplete. The tomb has never been found. The true function of the terraces remains debated. The astronomical alignments, real or coincidental, continue to divide scholars. Even the reason for the statue's decapitation is uncertain. Was it an earthquake, vandalism, or part of some ancient ritual of renewal, long lost to us? Mount Nemrut remains a paradox, a monument to memory that conceals more than it reveals. A king's yearning for immortality now eroded into dust, yet still powerful enough to move all who stand before it. As twilight fades, the mountain turns to shadow. The faces of gods dissolve into the night. And in that darkness, one can't help but wonder, if Antiochus truly believed his soul would ascend among the stars, might he still, in some sense, gaze back upon the mountain that bears his name? Perhaps that is the enduring mystery of Mount Nemrut. Not the tomb, nor the statues, nor the alignments, but the timeless human impulse to touch the divine, to leave behind something greater than flesh, something that might outlast even memory itself. And as the winds sweep across the high Anatolian plain, the question lingers softly in the silence of stone. What secret did Antiochus bury in his mountain of gods? And how much of it will ever see the light of day? From the soaring heights of Mount Nemrut, with its colossal heads and tumulus of gods, we return once more to the rugged landscapes of Peru, where human ambition carved vast cities long before the rise of the Inca. Here, on the high plains east of Cusco, lies Pikillaqta, the remnants of a civilization both powerful and enigmatic, whose ruins speak of order, ritual, and a mastery of space that still confounds archaeologists. At first glance, Pikillaqta is a geometric marvel, a sprawling settlement of over 60 acres, built in precise rectilinear blocks that stretch across the plateau. Its walls are uniform, straight, and monumental, enclosing temples, plazas, and streets laid out with remarkable regularity. Viewed from above, the city resembles a grid imposed upon the undulating landscape, as if human hands had superimposed logic and symmetry onto the organic chaos of nature. The Wari people, who flourished in the Andean highlands between roughly 600 and 1000 CE, constructed Pikillaqta as one of their major urban centers. But unlike later Inca cities, its purpose remains partially obscured by time. Was it primarily a residential hub, a religious center, or a political capital meant to consolidate control over the surrounding valleys? Perhaps it was all of these at once, a manifestation of Wari authority designed to awe, organize, and unify. The most striking features are the temples and huacas, monumental structures with imposing platforms, trapezoidal doors, and walls built of finely cut adobe. These temples were centers of ritual life, spaces where the Wari interacted with the spiritual forces that governed their world. Yet, despite extensive excavation, many questions linger. What ceremonies were conducted within these walls? What deities were honored? And why were some spaces meticulously maintained while others were deliberately left unfinished or abandoned? Archaeological studies reveal that Pikillaqta was highly organized. Roads and pathways connect its clusters of structures in a network designed for movement, procession, and perhaps control. The city was constructed with hydraulic channels for drainage, and its placement demonstrates an understanding of microclimates and the surrounding terrain. Every street, every plaza, every temple seems intentional, yet the reasoning behind the precise layout remains elusive. Did the city align with celestial events? Did it incorporate symbolic geography tied to Wari cosmology? Artifacts recovered from Pikillaqta, ceramics, textiles, and ceremonial objects, hint at a complex society, skilled in craftsmanship, trade, and ritual performance. Yet, curiously, there is little evidence of domestic activity within the temples themselves. Unlike typical urban centers, which blend homes and sacred spaces, Pikillaqta's monumental structures appear deliberately separated from ordinary life. Was this a city designed primarily for ceremonial purposes? Or were these areas reserved for an elite priesthood whose rituals dictated the rhythms of Wari society?
Some scholars propose that Pikillaqta functioned as a ritual administrative center, a combination of palace and temple, where religion and governance were inseparable. Its walls may have projected power as much as they contained it, a declaration that the Wari possessed control not only over land, but over spiritual and temporal authority. Others suggest that the site's unusual features hint at a calendar or observatory function aligned with solstices or lunar cycles, echoing the celestial awareness seen at Chankillo. Could the Wari, like their predecessors and successors, have encoded astronomical knowledge into the very bones of their city? Yet mysteries deepen as one explores the terraces and platforms. Many of the temples appear to have been intentionally dismantled, filled with earth, or left in partial ruin. Some walls bear signs of deliberate burning. Were these acts of conquest, ritual closure, or a symbolic cleansing of sacred space? And what does it say about a civilization that invested immense labor into creating monumental architecture, only to abandon or destroy parts of it within a few generations? Even the city's boundaries provoke wonder. Pikillaqta sits on a plateau surrounded by hills and valleys, commanding sweeping views of the Andean landscape. From this vantage, one can imagine a network of Wari centers across the region, connected by roads and lines of sight, forming a web of influence that stretched far beyond this single site. Was Pikillaqta a hub in a vast imperial design, a node where political strategy met spiritual authority? Or was it an isolated experiment in urban and ceremonial planning, whose lessons were lost when the Wari culture declined? Fringe theories, though speculative, invite reflection. Some researchers wonder if Pikillaqta's layout encodes more than practical or symbolic order. Could its temples and walls align with constellations, marking sacred sites visible from distant peaks? Could the repetition of shapes and patterns indicate a system of ritual mathematics or sacred geometry, an attempt to harmonize human space with cosmic order? And why does such precision appear here, centuries before similar urban planning techniques became widespread in the Andes? Walking among the ruins today, the plateau is quiet, except for the wind brushing across sun-baked adobe walls. The terraces rise in straight lines toward the horizon. The temples, though crumbling, still evoke the presence of ceremony, the echo of chants, the shadow of robes gliding across plazas, the flicker of sacred fires. One cannot help but feel the weight of human intention here, the careful orchestration of space, and the mystery of what it all meant to the Wari people. And yet, as with so many ancient sites, the story is incomplete. Pikillaqta offers fragments of ritual, architecture, and urban planning, clues that point to sophistication, power, and belief. But it leaves questions unanswered. Why this particular location? What exact rites were performed in these temples? How did the Wari coordinate such an elaborate settlement in the high Andes? And when the city was abandoned, what memories, knowledge, or traditions disappeared with it? The silence of Pikillaqta invites imagination as much as analysis. Standing on a terrace and gazing across the plain, one sees the Andean horizon stretch endlessly, as it must have 2,000 years ago. The sun rises over distant peaks, illuminating the walls, the courtyards, the temples, a reminder that, even in decay, intention endures. And so, as the wind sweeps across the plateau, it carries a question as old as the city itself. What secrets of faith, power, and knowledge remain hidden within the walls of Pikillaqta, and how much of the Wari's vision of the world will we ever truly understand? From the high plains of Pikillaqta, where the Wari built monumental temples that once echoed with ceremony and authority, our journey moves eastward across the Mediterranean to the rugged coastline of Corfu, a Greek island of turquoise waters and windswept hills. Here, among olive groves and rocky slopes, lies one of the most understated yet puzzling relics of ancient architecture, the Temple of Kardaki. Unlike the grandeur of the Parthenon or the imposing monuments of Mount Nemrut, Kardaki presents a quiet mystery. Its ruins rest on a natural terrace overlooking the Ionian Sea, partially obscured by overgrown vegetation and the weathered stone of centuries. At first glance, it seems an ordinary Doric temple, a rectangular plan, a row of columns, foundations hinting at a peristyle once supporting a stately roof. But upon closer inspection, the details provoke questions that have perplexed archaeologists for decades. The temple dates to the late 6th or early 5th century BCE, a period of experimentation in Greek architecture. Yet, unlike most contemporary Doric temples, Kardaki displays unusual deviations from canonical norms. Its columns are irregularly spaced. The foundations suggest that the stylobate, the platform supporting the columns, is subtly curved, and the orientation of the temple does not align neatly with cardinal points or solar phenomena, as was common in other Greek sanctuaries. Could these anomalies be mere quirks of local builders, or were they deliberate, encoding a knowledge or purpose now lost to time? The function of the temple is equally enigmatic. Unlike larger sanctuaries dedicated to well-known Olympian gods, Kardaki's dedication remains uncertain. No inscriptions survive. No votive offerings have been conclusively linked to the site. Some scholars speculate it may have honored a local deity, a hero cult, or perhaps a syncretic blend of influences from mainland Greece and neighboring colonies in the Adriatic. Its modest scale suggests it may not have served as a major religious center, yet the careful execution of the masonry and the quality of the stonework imply that it was important to those who built it. One of the most intriguing aspects is the architectural experimentation evident in the temple. Unlike the strict proportional rules codified in later Doric design, Kardaki seems to bend them. Columns vary slightly in diameter, stylobate measurements diverge from standard modules, and the alignment of walls creates subtle visual effects when viewed from specific angles. Could the builders have been attempting something experimental? A local innovation that never spread beyond this site? Or could these irregularities hold a symbolic or astronomical meaning, a form of ancient knowledge encoded into stone? The temple's isolation adds to its mystery. Unlike the dense urban clusters of Athens or the grand sanctuaries of Delphi, Kardaki stands alone, exposed to the coastal wind and the rhythm of the sea. Its terraces overlook both the island's interior and the horizon beyond, suggesting a deliberate choice in placement. Was it meant to engage with the landscape itself, connecting the human and the divine through the geometry of space? Or does its position speak to a ritual practice, now vanished, performed at dawn or dusk when the light would play across the columns and terraces in a sacred choreography? Some researchers point to the possibility of astronomical alignments. While the temple does not align perfectly with solstices, its orientation may correspond to specific lunar cycles or seasonal observations significant to local cults. Could Kardaki have functioned as a ritual observatory, where priests and worshippers timed festivals, sacrifices, or ceremonies with the movements of the sky? And if so, why is there no corroborating record elsewhere on the island? Other mysteries arise from what is missing. There is no clear evidence of a cella. The enclosed inner chamber typical of Greek temples, no large altars, no surviving cult statues, no inscriptions naming a deity. The absence of these key features leaves a sense of incompleteness. Was the temple destroyed prematurely? Abandoned in mid-construction? Or was it designed intentionally in a way that defies the expectations of conventional Greek religious architecture? Fringe theories, though speculative, invite further reflection. Some suggest the temple's irregularities indicate a ritual function outside conventional worship, a site for initiatory rites, secret ceremonies, or symbolic acts meant only for the initiated. Others note that Kardaki may have been part of a network of sanctuaries along the Ionian coast, connected by sightlines or maritime routes, forming a spiritual map whose full meaning has been erased by centuries of history and nature. Walking among the ruins today, the subtlety of the structure becomes apparent. The columns, though fractured, maintain a rhythm that draws the eye along the perimeter. The terraces step naturally with the slope of the land, and the wind carries the faint echoes of centuries past, of voices lost, prayers unsaid, and rituals unseen. It is a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist. A modest Doric temple, yet a monument that provokes questions larger than its size. Kardaki challenges our assumptions about ancient Greek architecture. It asks us to consider not just who built it, but why. Why deviate from standardized forms? Why place it here, in this isolated corner of Corfu? What rituals were enacted, and for which gods, if any? Was its purpose mundane, ceremonial, or something that slipped between the cracks of recorded history? Even the silence of the surrounding landscape becomes part of the enigma. The Ionian waves crash against distant shores, yet the temple remains untouched by modern development, isolated, weathered, and persistent. Time has eroded much of its stone, yet the subtle irregularities, the careful positioning, and the architectural curiosity remain. And so, as the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the terraces of Kardaki, one cannot help but reflect on the unknown. The temple endures as a question in stone, modest, silent, yet profound. What secrets lie within the irregular columns and hidden terraces of the Temple of Kardaki, and how much of its purpose has been lost to the winds of time? From the quiet terraces of the Temple of Kardaki, where Doric columns whisper of forgotten rituals along the Ionian coast, we turn now to the western Mediterranean, to the windswept island of Menorca, where stone monuments rise in austere solitude across the rolling landscape. Here, in the heart of prehistoric culture, stand the Taulas, enigmatic T-shaped megaliths whose purpose continues to elude modern understanding. Approaching a Taula for the first time, the effect is immediate and almost otherworldly. Massive upright stones, some taller than a man, support horizontal lintels, forming a shape reminiscent of a crucifix or the outline of a table, hence their name, Taula, which means table in Catalan. They stand alone, often within stone enclosures, their surfaces weathered by centuries of wind and sun, yet their geometric simplicity conveys an unmistakable presence. There is a rhythm to their placement, some aligned with celestial events, others positioned with deliberate spacing that suggests design rather than coincidence. The Taulas date to the Taliatic period, roughly between 1000 and 300 BCE, part of a culture unique to the Balearic Islands. Yet, despite extensive archaeological work, their function remains ambiguous. Were they altars for religious ceremonies, markers for astronomical observations, centers of social gathering, or perhaps all of these layered across centuries of human activity? The absence of written records leaves only the stones themselves as witnesses to human intention, their silent faces staring across the landscape as they have for millennia. Some enclosures, called Taula sanctuaries, feature carefully arranged stone circles or walls, creating spaces that evoke deliberate ritual choreography. In these confined areas, the Taula rises from the ground, a vertical axis between earth and sky. Their orientation is striking. Many face south, toward the midday sun, a positioning that hints at a possible connection to solar cycles. Could the Taulas have functioned as calendrical markers, helping prehistoric communities track the passage of the year and the rhythm of agricultural seasons? Or did the orientation serve a purely symbolic purpose, connecting the people to a deity, a spirit, or a cosmic order now lost to memory? Excavations reveal little of domestic life within the Taula enclosures. There are no dwellings, no evidence of permanent habitation, yet traces of offerings, pottery shards, animal bones, and occasional votive objects suggest intermittent ceremonial activity. It is as if these sites were deliberately isolated, sanctuaries, not settlements. Yet the effort required to construct these monumental stones, some weighing multiple tons, implies an organized society capable of coordinated labor. How did they transport and raise such stones with only the tools available in the Bronze and Iron Ages? And why devote such effort to structures whose purpose remains so elusive? Speculation deepens when considering the architectural consistency across Menorca. More than 50 Taulas have been documented, often situated in clusters within close proximity to other Taliatic structures, including taliots, the island's tower-like monuments. Was there a standardized ritual network, a system of spiritual or social communication spread across the island? Or did each Taula carry its own local significance, its meaning tied to a particular clan, community, or sacred site? Astronomical alignments invite further curiosity. Some researchers have suggested that the orientation of certain Taulas corresponds not only with the sun, but also with lunar standstills. the extreme positions of the moon's rise and set during its 18.6-year cycle. If intentional, this would imply a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics, encoded in stone by a culture otherwise known only through material remnants. Could the Taulas have served as astronomical observatories, allowing their builders to track cycles essential for agriculture, ritual, or societal governance? Fringe interpretations, though speculative, are equally compelling. Some suggest that the Taulas were symbolic thrones of the gods, where the living could commune with the divine. Others propose a shamanic function, spaces where spiritual practitioners enacted rites of initiation or trance. The geometry of the enclosures, the height of the stones, and their isolation evoke an architectural language designed to impress, intimidate, or inspire. There is a sense that the builders intended not only to construct, but to convey, leaving messages in stone whose meanings have faded across the centuries. Walking among these megaliths today, one feels the weight of time and the persistence of human intention. The landscape is stark, open to the sky, shaped by wind, sea, and sun. Shadows stretch across the ground, shifting with the sun's path, creating fleeting patterns that may have been recognized and revered by those who built the Taulas. One can imagine ceremonies performed at dawn or dusk, voices raised in chant, offerings placed upon the stones, all within a carefully controlled architectural stage. Yet the absence of detailed records leaves only questions, inviting the imagination to fill the silence. The enduring mystery of the Taulas lies in this tension between what is tangible and what remains unknown. We see the stones, their shapes and placements. We see the remnants of walls and enclosures, pottery fragments and bones. But the thoughts, beliefs, and intentions of the people who built them remain inaccessible. Why did the Taliadic culture devote such labor to these structures? What did they hope to achieve? Spiritual communion, social cohesion, or cosmic understanding? And why did this tradition vanish, leaving no continuity into later cultures on the island? The Taulas, in their austere beauty, offer a lesson in subtlety. They are not grand palaces or colossal statues. They do not scream their purpose. Instead, they invite contemplation. Their silence is their strength, compelling the observer to slow down, to notice details, to imagine the hands that placed each stone, the people who walked between them, and the sky they gazed upon. As the sun dips low over the western Mediterranean, the shadows of the Taulas stretch long across the rocky terrain. Wind stirs the surrounding scrub, and the stones, weathered but upright, seem to hold their vigil as they have for thousands of years. In this quiet, one senses both the presence of the past and the enduring absence of certainty, the unknown purpose, the unrecorded rituals, the lost knowledge. And so, standing among these ancient sentinels, one is left with a question that endures as strongly as the stones themselves. What secrets did the builders of the Taulas of Menorca intend to preserve, and how much of their understanding remains buried in the shadows of time? From the windswept fields of Menorca, where the Taulas rise as solemn sentinels of prehistoric ritual, our journey moves south across the Mediterranean to the sun-soaked island of Gozo, part of the Maltese archipelago. Here, amidst gentle hills and cultivated valleys, stand some of the oldest megalithic structures in the world. The Ggantija Temples, monuments that predate Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids, yet remain shrouded in mystery. Approaching Ggantija, the scale is striking. Massive slabs of limestone, some weighing more than 50 tons, rise vertically from the earth, forming double temples that seem to embrace the sky. The stones, roughly hewn yet imposing, create spaces both confined and expansive, courtyards and chambers that suggest deliberate planning and ceremonial purpose. From a distance, the temples appear almost organic, as if the builders coaxed the stones to grow from the land itself. The sense of age is overwhelming. These stones have stood for more than 5,000 years, weathering wind, rain, and human curiosity, yet their presence remains powerfully immediate. The Ggantija Temples belong to the Neolithic period, constructed around 3,600 to 3,200 BCE, during a time when agriculture, settlement, and ritual were intertwined in human society. Yet the questions surrounding these structures are profound. Who built them? How were the enormous stones transported and raised with only primitive tools? And most intriguingly, why dedicate such monumental effort to these silent edifices, whose exact function is still debated millennia later? Archaeologists suggest that the temples were sacred spaces, dedicated to fertility and the cycles of life. Excavations have uncovered figurines of women with exaggerated features, interpreted as symbols of fertility or mother goddesses. Animal bones and traces of food offerings hint at ritual feasting, while the layout of the temples, a series of apses leading from one chamber to another, suggests a ritualistic purpose suggests ceremonial processions. Yet, despite these clues, much remains unresolved. The precise religious beliefs of the builders are unknown, and the meaning behind the architecture remains speculative. One of the most remarkable aspects of Ggantija is the sheer size of the stones themselves. How did a Neolithic society, without the wheel or advanced lifting technology, move slabs weighing tens of tons across uneven terrain? Some theories propose ingenious methods of sledges, rollers, and manpower, yet no definitive evidence exists. Was the challenge purely practical, or did the act of transporting and raising these stones carry spiritual significance, a ritual labor meant to honor the divine through effort and devotion? The temple's orientation adds another layer of mystery. The southern temple is aligned roughly toward the sunrise during solstices, suggesting an awareness of celestial cycles. Could the Ggantija Temples have functioned as early observatories, marking the movement of the sun and signaling times for agricultural or ritual activities? Or were the alignments symbolic, connecting the earthly realm with cosmic order, embedding knowledge of the heavens into the stones themselves? Beyond the architecture and orientation, the placement of Ggantija on Gozo's landscape is striking. The temples occupy a slight elevation, overlooking the surrounding valleys, with views that extend toward the horizon. This vantage point would have made the temples prominent in the eyes of nearby communities, emphasizing their sacred or social importance. Was the site chosen for its visibility, its spiritual resonance, or a combination of both? And if visibility was key, did it serve as a center of pilgrimage, drawing people across the island to participate in communal rituals? Some scholars have suggested that Ggantija represents a proto-urban form, an early attempt to organize sacred and social space in a manner more sophisticated than simple habitation. Its design, with repeated architectural motifs, careful stone placement, and enclosed courtyards, reflects advanced planning and social coordination. Yet, unlike later monumental cultures, no written records survive, leaving us to piece together purpose and meaning from stones, bones, and fragments of material culture. Fringe theories abound, reflecting the human fascination with ancient feats. Some propose astronomical functions beyond the solar cycle, possible lunar alignments or star observations embedded in the layout. Others speculate on lost technologies or forgotten engineering knowledge that allowed the builders to manipulate massive stones with apparent ease. Could these temples have been deliberately aligned with energetic ley lines, or were they simply a reflection of human ingenuity and devotion? Walking among the megaliths today, one senses the interplay of scale, time, and human intention. The stones, worn yet resilient, create spaces that are at once intimate and awe-inspiring. Sunlight filters through the gaps, illuminating walls in shifting patterns, casting shadows that hint at ceremonial choreography long since vanished. Even without knowing the exact rituals, one can almost imagine processions, offerings, chants, and the communal labor that brought these giants into being. And yet, for all their grandeur, Ggantija remains an enigma. The questions linger. What motivated a Neolithic community to dedicate decades, perhaps generations, to these constructions? What ceremonies, beliefs, or cosmologies inspired such precision and effort? And why do these temples, so enduring and monumental, offer so few concrete answers? The Ggantija Temples challenge our understanding of prehistoric societies. They remind us that human ambition, creativity, and spiritual desire are not confined to literate civilizations or recorded history. They compel us to confront the unknown, to consider the lives, beliefs, and ingenuity of people whose world was radically different from our own, yet whose marks still resonate across millennia. As the Maltese sun sets over the hills of Gozo, casting long shadows across the limestone and illuminating the contours of the temples, one feels the weight of human effort, devotion, and mystery. The stones remain silent, yet they speak across the ages, challenging us to perceive what once was and to wonder at what remains hidden beneath the surface of memory and time. And standing among these ancient giants, the question endures, soft yet insistent. What knowledge, what devotion, and what mysteries lie locked within the stones of Ggantija? And how much will we ever truly uncover? From the sun-baked stones of Ggantija, standing proud on the Maltese hills, our journey turns northward across the waters of the Mediterranean and the Atlantic to the wind-swept coastline of Cornwall, England. Here, amidst rolling green fields and rugged moorlands, lies a far subtler, quieter kind of mystery. The Fogou, underground dry stone chambers, whose purpose and meaning have remained elusive for centuries. At first glance, a Fogou seems unremarkable. A low mound of earth, a dark opening in the pasture, a narrow passage disappearing beneath the rolling landscape. Step inside, and the atmosphere changes instantly. The air cools and thickens. The faint scent of damp earth and stone lingers. The walls, constructed with massive granite slabs carefully fitted without mortar, rise from the ground with understated solidity. The ceiling is low, forcing visitors to stoop, and the passage twists and narrows in ways that make the space feel both protective and disorienting. There is a profound intimacy here, a tension between concealment and endurance. Fogus date primarily to the Iron Age, roughly between 500 BCE and 100 CE, though many remain poorly documented. They are rare, with perhaps only a few dozen known examples across Cornwall. Scholars have long debated their function. Were they simple storage spaces for food, hidden away from the damp and from raiders? Were they refuges, secret chambers for protection during conflict? Or were they ceremonial, sacred, or even ritualistic, designed to connect with unseen forces beneath the earth? The construction of a Fogou is itself puzzling. The dry stone technique requires precise skill. The stones must bear weight without mortar, resisting centuries of frost, water, and soil pressure. Many passages stretch tens of meters underground, with carefully corbelled roofs and side niches. The engineering is sophisticated, yet the purpose remains opaque. If the goal were purely practical, why invest so much effort in structures whose size and form far exceed the needs of simple storage? Why create passages so narrow, winding, and disorienting, seemingly designed to challenge the body as much as to serve a function? Excavations have uncovered tantalizing clues. Fragments of pottery, occasional animal bones, and evidence of fire suggest that fogus were used in varied ways. In some, traces of ritual deposition hint at ceremonial use, offerings placed within the chambers, deliberately left to decay. In others, evidence of stored grain or tools implies practical function. The duality persists. Are Fogous purely utilitarian, purely ritualistic, or a combination of both? Some researchers have drawn parallels to other subterranean traditions across Europe. In Ireland and Brittany, similar underground chambers appear, often linked with burial or sacred practices. Could the Fogous represent a unique manifestation of a widespread prehistoric fascination with the underworld, darkness, and hidden spaces? Were they considered gateways, portals to other realms, channels for the unseen forces of the earth, the ancestors, or the spirits of the land? The location of Fogous adds further intrigue. Often they are found within or adjacent to settlement mounds, suggesting a connection to daily life. Yet their entrances are inconspicuous, deliberately concealed by turf or stones. Some passages are oriented in particular directions, sometimes aligned with cardinal points or with local landscape features such as streams, hills, or valleys. Could these orientations be symbolic, marking points of power or channels of energy? Or were they practical, taking advantage of natural drainage or the stability of bedrock? Fringe theories, speculative yet compelling, propose that Fogous were more than storage or ritual sites. Some suggest they functioned as temporal sanctuaries, used in periods of crisis, winter solstice ceremonies, or initiation rites. Others imagine the Fogous as acoustic spaces, their enclosed stone construction amplifying sound, creating eerie effects for chants or music during ritual observances. Could the design of the chambers have been intended to induce altered states of consciousness, blending physical confinement with spiritual exploration? Walking through a Fogou today, the experience is almost cinematic. The passage is dim, cool, and silent, punctuated only by the faint drip of water through stone and earth. Light filters from the entrance, casting long, shifting shadows along rough granite walls. Every twist and turn evokes questions about the lives and beliefs of those who dug these chambers, lifted the enormous slabs, and descended into the subterranean darkness. There is a palpable sense of intimacy and secrecy, as though these spaces were deliberately removed from the ordinary world, leaving only the whispers of those who entered long ago. Even without definitive answers, the Fogous offer a window into the ingenuity and worldview of the Iron Age communities of Cornwall. They reflect a society capable of sophisticated engineering and nuanced ritual, one that sought to manipulate space in ways both practical and symbolic. They remind us that human creativity and spirituality need not always manifest in grandeur above ground. Sometimes, the most profound expressions lie hidden beneath our feet, in cool, silent stone. Yet, for all we observe, Fogous remain enigmatic. Their original function, the full extent of their use, and the beliefs attached to them are unknown. Were they primarily utilitarian, religious, protective, or a combination that has been lost over time? Why do some Fogous appear simple and functional while others are elaborate and mysterious? And what secrets lie in those darkened chambers, beyond reach, waiting for discovery? As one emerges into the Cornish sunlight, leaving the Fogou's cool shadows behind, the contrast is striking. The open fields seem familiar, ordinary, yet the memory of the subterranean passage lingers, a reminder of the hidden layers of human ingenuity and ritual that have endured for millennia. The Fogous stand as quiet testaments to a past that sought to blend necessity, spirituality, and ingenuity into enduring stone. And in that silence, one cannot help but wonder, what truths, rituals, or knowledge remain entombed in the Fogous of Cornwall, and how much of this subterranean world will continue to elude our understanding? From the hidden subterranean chambers of Cornwall's Fogous, where silence and shadow intertwine, we now journey across continents and seas to the arid plains of the Horn of Africa. Here, in the rugged landscape of Djibouti, amid volcanic hills and sparse desert vegetation, lie the ruins of Handoga, an ancient stone settlement whose origins and purpose continue to intrigue archaeologists and explorers alike. Approaching Handoga, the first impression is one of scale and precision. Stones, carefully shaped and stacked without mortar, form walls that define the remnants of houses, enclosures, and streets. The structures rise modestly, their heights barely surpassing a person, yet their layout suggests an intentional order that speaks of a complex, organized society. Unlike the grand monuments of Malta or Menorca, Handoga's stonework is understated, practical, and yet enduring, a testament to human ingenuity in an unforgiving environment. Handoga is believed to date from between the 1st and 5th centuries CE, though much remains uncertain. Its builders remain largely unknown, though the settlement is generally attributed to Proto-Somali or Afro-Asiatic communities who occupied the region during that period. Archaeological studies reveal clusters of rectangular enclosures, pathways connecting different quarters, and circular structures that may have served communal or ritual functions. Yet despite these observations, the precise function of Handoga as a settlement, whether domestic, defensive, or ceremonial, is still debated. The construction techniques are remarkable. Stones are carefully fitted without mortar, yet the walls have survived centuries of erosion, wind, and occasional seismic activity. The layout suggests forethought, streets oriented to facilitate movement, structures clustered in ways that may reflect social organization, communal areas set apart from private spaces. How did these communities thrive in such an arid, rugged environment? What resources sustained them? And what strategies allowed them to build a settlement so durable that it still stands, partially intact, today? Excavations have uncovered fragments of pottery, beads, and tools, yet few inscriptions or direct records of daily life. The scarcity of written material leaves much to interpretation, forcing researchers to rely on architectural clues and material culture. Some enclosures show evidence of specialized activity, perhaps craft production, storage, or ritual. Could Handoga have functioned as more than a residential site, serving as a hub of trade, a ceremonial center, or a fortified refuge? And if so, what forces, environmental, social, or political, necessitated such planning and labor? The site's location adds to the intrigue. Handoga rests near volcanic outcrops, providing natural protection and elevated vantage points over surrounding plains. Water sources, though scarce, are nearby, suggesting careful selection of the site to balance defense, resources, and habitation. Was the settlement chosen primarily for practical reasons, or did the landscape hold spiritual or symbolic significance for its builders? Could the stones themselves, arranged in regular patterns, encode cultural or astronomical knowledge now lost to time? Some researchers note that Handoga may have been connected to larger regional networks. The Horn of Africa, even in antiquity, was a crossroads of trade routes linking the Red Sea, the Arabian Peninsula, and interior Africa. Could Handoga have been a waypoint in this network, a settlement designed not merely for survival, but for strategic commerce and cultural exchange? If so, the stone enclosures may have functioned as protective storage, administrative hubs, or communal centers for visiting travelers and traders. Yet other mysteries deepen when considering the layout and construction. Certain walls appear to have been deliberately built with precision beyond immediate necessity, while other areas seem partially unfinished or abandoned. Could this indicate phased construction, societal upheaval, or shifts in purpose over time? Some speculate that ritual and social factors may have influenced these choices, with specific structures intended for ceremonial or symbolic functions rather than practical habitation. Fringe theories have emerged, though speculative, adding another layer to Handoga's enigmatic nature. Some propose the settlement may have been part of an early astronomical or calendrical system, with orientations of walls and enclosures aligning with solstices, lunar cycles, or other celestial events. Others suggest that certain clusters of stone could have functioned as ritual spaces for spiritual or ancestral veneration, much like the Taulas of Menorca or the Fogou of Cornwall, expressions of human belief and societal cohesion encoded into stone. Walking among the ruins today, the experience is haunting and contemplative. The desert wind sweeps through empty corridors and courtyards. Shadows stretch across low walls, emphasizing the deliberate angles and careful stone placement. There is a rhythm to the settlement, a sense of human presence preserved in silence. One can imagine the daily life that once filled these spaces. People moving along pathways, children playing in courtyards, artisans working with stone and clay, rituals conducted at dawn or dusk beneath the open sky. Yet much of this life remains intangible, traceable only through inference and imagination. Handoga challenges our understanding of ancient societies in the Horn of Africa. It reminds us that monumental construction is not the exclusive domain of large empires. Even small communities, working with limited technology, can leave enduring marks upon the landscape. It invites reflection on the intersection of survival, ingenuity, and spirituality, how humans, even in challenging environments, create spaces that are functional, symbolic, and enduring. And yet, for all we observe, Handoga retains its mystery. Who were its builders, and why did they invest such effort in this stone settlement? Were the structures primarily domestic, defensive, ritualistic, or some combination? Why was the site eventually abandoned, leaving only traces of walls and fragments of life beneath the Djiboutian sun? As the afternoon light fades across the volcanic hills, illuminating the low walls and shadowed passages, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe and uncertainty. The stones speak quietly, hinting at knowledge, labor, and belief, yet they withhold their full story. The settlement endures, silent and enigmatic, a testament to human determination and the enduring allure of the unknown. And standing amidst the ruins of Handoga, the question lingers, as timeless as the stones themselves. What truths, what rituals, and what knowledge remain hidden within the walls of this ancient settlement? And how much of its story will ever emerge from the desert silence? From the stone settlement ruins of Handoga, where human ingenuity met the arid challenges of the Horn of Africa, our journey now moves southwest, across oceans and continents, to the remote highlands of northern Chile, where the desert meets the Andes. Here, rising dramatically from the flat expanse of the Atacama Desert, stands El Cono, a striking pyramid-shaped mountain whose sharply defined slopes have drawn the gaze and curiosity of explorers, geologists, and conspiracy theorists alike. At first sight, El Cono is almost surreal. Unlike the jagged peaks of neighboring ranges, this formation presents a remarkably uniform, triangular profile. From certain angles, it seems artificially perfect, its symmetry unsettling against the rugged, irregular landscape that surrounds it. Its base spreads broadly across the desert floor, while its sides rise steeply, converging to a sharp summit that punctuates the horizon. In the golden light of dawn or dusk, shadows emphasize the geometric clarity of its form, giving it the appearance of a colossal man-made monument carved from the earth itself. Geologists identify El Cono as a natural formation, a result of volcanic activity and erosion over millions of years. The mountain is composed primarily of volcanic rock, its surfaces shaped by centuries of wind, water, and tectonic activity. Yet for all the scientific explanations, questions remain. Its pyramid-like shape is strikingly precise, far more so than most natural peaks in the region. Is it merely coincidence? The product of chance geological processes sculpting a remarkably symmetrical mountain? Or does El Cono conceal some intentional design, whether natural or influenced by ancient human hands? Satellite imagery and aerial photography reveal that the mountain maintains its sharp angles and regular outline from multiple perspectives, reinforcing its visual impact. Its appearance evokes immediate comparisons to the pyramids of Egypt or to the step-like mountains and conical formations seen in other parts of the world. Could human perception be drawn toward geometric regularity, interpreting nature's randomness as something deliberate? Or might there be a deeper connection, a recognition, conscious or subconscious, by ancient peoples who lived nearby to the cosmic or symbolic significance of triangular forms? Local lore surrounding El Cono adds another layer of intrigue. Stories passed down through generations speak of unusual energy, strange lights at night, and spiritual significance. While these accounts are anecdotal and unverifiable, they reflect the mountain's place in human imagination, a prominence so profound that it has become a marker, a point of reference in both the physical and cultural landscape. Such narratives raise questions about ancient awareness of the mountain. Did pre-Columbian peoples recognize its unusual form? Did it inspire ritual, observation, or symbolic reverence? Beyond folklore, some researchers speculate that the mountain's shape may have been deliberately enhanced. Erosion, landslides, and volcanic flows could have produced the initial cone, but human activity might have modified its slopes subtly over time. While there is no conclusive evidence of construction, the possibility invites reflection. Could El Cono have served as a ceremonial marker, an orientation point, or even a territorial symbol for early desert cultures? Another aspect that captures attention is the mountain's placement within the surrounding geography. It rises from an otherwise relatively flat plateau, making it visible for miles in every direction. Its triangular symmetry aligns loosely with nearby peaks and valleys, forming a landscape that, while natural, appears deliberately ordered. Was this simply coincidence, or could ancient observers have incorporated El Cono into their understanding of the land, using it as a guide for navigation, ritual alignment, or territorial demarcation? Some fringe interpretations take a more speculative approach, imagining El Cono as an ancient signal or marker, a reference point visible across the Atacama Desert. Others wonder if it was part of a network of geomorphological features, mountains, valleys, and rock formations, that ancient civilizations imbued with meaning, or even subtly altered to reflect celestial patterns. Though evidence remains lacking, the mere possibility reflects the human fascination with shapes, symbols, and the natural world. Visiting El Cono today is an experience of scale, geometry, and isolation. The desert is silent, punctuated only by the wind and the occasional call of distant birds. As one approaches the base, the pyramid's slopes reveal their true size, towering, austere, and uncompromising. The contrast between the stark simplicity of its outline and the rugged complexity of the surrounding terrain is striking, leaving a sense of both awe and uncertainty. Every step across its lower slopes raises questions about the intersection of nature and human perception. What is accidental, and what, if anything, is intentional? For geologists, El Cono is a fascinating example of natural processes: erosion, sediment deposition, and volcanic shaping producing unexpected symmetry. For archaeologists, the mountain raises questions about human cognition, symbolism, and the interpretation of landscape features. And for the imaginative observer, it evokes timeless wonder, a pyramid that appears carved for purpose, standing alone in a sea of desert, challenging our assumptions about the boundaries between nature and design. Yet for all the analysis, the mystery endures. We may never know whether the mountain's geometry is purely natural, subtly enhanced, or imbued with meaning by the peoples who lived nearby. We may never discover if it held spiritual significance, served as a ritual reference, or simply captivated human attention by its improbable perfection. As the sun dips low over the Atacama, casting long shadows across the desert, El Cono stands silent, its slopes glowing in the fading light. Its sharp profile, visible from miles away, asserts a presence that is both natural and uncanny, commanding observation while withholding certainty. The wind brushes over its ridges, carrying with it the echoes of millennia of geological and human history, unanswered questions, and the faint imprint of imagination. And as we stand at a distance, contemplating the unlikely perfection of this isolated mountain, one cannot help but ask, is El Cono merely the artistry of nature, or does it hold hidden traces of human interaction, symbolism, or observation, secrets that remain buried in stone and time, waiting for someone to uncover their story? From the arid expanses of Chile's El Cono, where a pyramid-shaped mountain challenges our perception of nature and design, our journey now turns northward across the Americas to the vast, freshwater expanse of Lake Michigan. Beneath its tranquil surface, resting quietly along the lakebed near Charlevoix, Michigan, lies a formation that has captivated divers, archaeologists, and amateur explorers alike, the so-called Lake Michigan Stonehenge. A submerged circle of large stones, arranged in patterns reminiscent of the ancient megalithic structures of Europe, it poses questions that ripple far beyond its watery depths. The first glimpse of the stones beneath the lake is startling. Viewed through the clear, cold water, massive boulders lie in deliberate arrangement, some upright, some carefully aligned along the circumference of a rough circle. The scale is modest compared to England's Stonehenge, yet the impact is immediate. The stones evoke order, intent, and a presence that seems almost impossible to explain in such an environment. Shadows cast by the sun filter through the water, illuminating the subtle geometry and the careful spacing of these submerged monoliths, giving the impression of a deliberate design frozen in time. Mainstream archaeologists have proposed several explanations. Some suggest the stones were arranged naturally by glacial movement during the last ice age, a byproduct of retreating ice sheets and shifting lake beds. Others argue that the site could have been a prehistoric human construction, created thousands of years ago when water levels in the Great Lakes were significantly lower. If this is the case, then the people who built it must have possessed not only an understanding of geometry but also a sense of ceremonial or astronomical purpose, leaving a trace of civilization now hidden beneath nearly 40 feet of water. The submerged nature of the site adds layers of mystery. How did these stones come to rest in such deliberate alignment? Were they markers for ancient navigation, ceremonial gathering spots, or rudimentary observatories for tracking the sun and seasons? Could the formation have been a communal ritual site, a place of gathering, feasting, or spiritual significance? And if humans were indeed responsible, what level of sophistication and societal organization would have been necessary to orchestrate such a construction so long ago in the upper Midwest? Divers exploring the site have noted that the stones are unusually uniform in size and shape, with several standing upright in ways that defy natural deposition. The circle itself measures roughly 40 to 50 feet across, with smaller stones radiating inward like spokes or forming patterns that hint at symbolic intent. Some observers have suggested that the arrangement resembles a calendar or lunar observatory, aligned with sunrise or sunset at certain times of the year. If true, this would suggest a remarkable understanding of astronomy for a people whose material culture has largely been erased by time and water. There are also intriguing reports of artifacts near the site. Small fragments of pottery, stone tools, and unusual markings on some boulders. While few have been conclusively linked to the structure, their presence hints at human activity in the region during periods when the lake's shoreline would have been far different from today. Could this site represent a forgotten chapter of North American prehistory, an experiment in megalithic construction that predates or exists alongside better-known cultures? Fringe theories abound, as they often do with enigmatic stone formations. Some propose that the submerged circle was part of a larger network of ritual sites, now lost to rising water levels after the last ice age. Others speculate about prehistoric maritime cultures, using the stones as markers for fishing, navigation, or even early astronomical measurement. While these ideas remain unproven, they underscore the depth of human curiosity and the sense of wonder these stones inspire. A circle beneath the lake that quietly defies explanation, yet speaks to intent, purpose, and meaning. The Lake Michigan Stonehenge also challenges modern perceptions of time and preservation. Unlike the stones of Europe or Malta, which have remained exposed for millennia, these boulders are hidden beneath water, protected from weathering, but isolated from human observation. This isolation gives the site a sense of quiet majesty, a liminal space between land and water, past and present. Standing on the shore, looking across the lake toward the submerged circle, one senses the weight of human ingenuity paired with the enduring mysteries of nature. The environment itself contributes to the enigma. Seasonal changes, currents, and sediment shifts conceal or reveal parts of the formation over time, creating a dynamic interplay between visibility and concealment. In winter, ice and snow obscure the water's surface, hiding the stones entirely, while summer sun filters through translucent layers, revealing their precise arrangement. This interaction with the natural world adds a layer of temporal mystery. The formation is never entirely seen, never fully understood, and always partially concealed by its environment. Even with modern diving equipment, sonar imaging, and archaeological study, definitive answers remain elusive. Was this a natural formation accidentally resembling human intent? Or is it a product of deliberate prehistoric construction, a megalithic experiment now submerged and largely forgotten? And if human-made, who were these ancient builders, and what cultural knowledge have we lost in the millennia since the last people walked along the prehistoric shores of Lake Michigan? As the sun sets over the lake, casting golden light across rippling waves, the submerged stones shimmer faintly beneath the surface. The circle remains steadfast, quiet, and inscrutable. A monument to human curiosity, the passage of time, and the enduring mystery of intent preserved in stone. Divers ascend, sunlight fading, leaving the formation beneath the water, as inscrutable as it has been for centuries. And standing on the shore, looking across the calm lake, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets lie beneath the waters of Lake Michigan, and how much of our ancient human history remains hidden, awaiting discovery beneath the silent, shifting surface. From the submerged stones of Lake Michigan, silent beneath decades of fresh water, our exploration returns to solid ground, tracing the human impulse to create enduring monuments from stone. Across the Atlantic in southern Spain, near the town of Antequera, rises one of Europe's most enigmatic and monumental prehistoric structures, the Dolmen of Menga. A megalithic tomb unlike any other, it stands as a testament to ancient engineering, human ritual, and enduring mystery, its presence both imposing and quietly mesmerizing. The first sight of Menga commands attention. Massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 180 tons, are stacked to form a long rectangular chamber that stretches more than 27 meters in length. The entrance, framed by colossal orthostats, leads into a space that feels both monumental and intimate. Inside, the ceiling is composed of enormous capstones, carefully fitted to span the width of the chamber with precision that challenges modern understanding. Sunlight, when it enters through the narrow passageway, illuminates the stone surfaces in shifting patterns, highlighting the subtle variations in texture, color, and form. The dolmen exudes a sense of permanence, a deliberate assertion of presence across the millennia. The Dolmen of Menga is believed to date from the 3rd millennium BCE, part of the broader megalithic tradition of southern Iberia. Its size, scale, and sophistication place it among the largest and most complex of European dolmens, suggesting an organized society with knowledge of engineering, labor coordination, and ceremonial practice. Archaeological studies indicate that the dolmen served as a tomb or ritual site, though the precise nature of the interments remains unclear. Human remains, pottery, and tools have been discovered, yet they tell only part of the story. The purpose, symbolism, and cultural significance of the structure invite as many questions as answers. The orientation of the Dolmen of Menga adds to its intrigue. Unlike many megalithic tombs that align with solar events, Menga is uniquely oriented toward the Peña de los Enamorados, a striking limestone cliff resembling a human profile. This alignment suggests a deliberate connection between tomb and landscape, a relationship that seems symbolic, spiritual, or cultural. What meaning did this connection hold for its builders? Was it intended to link the living and the dead, the human and the natural, or to mark a sacred landscape now largely forgotten? The engineering of Menga continues to astound scholars. How did prehistoric builders quarry, transport, and lift such enormous stones without advanced machinery? Some suggest that logs, ropes, earthen ramps, and sheer manpower were used, yet the precision of placement and the stability of the structure over thousands of years remain extraordinary. Could the process of construction itself have held ritual significance, with each stone carefully positioned according to cosmological or ceremonial principles? Or was it purely a demonstration of communal effort and technical mastery? Inside the dolmen, the spatial experience is striking. The long corridor and chambers create a rhythm of compression and release, a deliberate journey into enclosed stone. Some researchers speculate that this architecture was intended to evoke spiritual reflection or transformation. Light, shadow, and sound behave uniquely within the chamber. Footsteps echo differently, and the subtle hum of the wind outside seems amplified. Did these effects enhance ritual experiences, guide participants through ceremonies, or even serve as an early form of acoustic architecture? Fringe interpretations have emerged, fueled by the dolmen's monumental scale and unusual alignment. Some suggest that the structure functioned not only as a tomb, but also as a ceremonial observatory, with sightlines connecting human activity to celestial or terrestrial landmarks. Others propose that Menga represents a symbolic map, aligning human memory with the landscape itself, a way for prehistoric communities to encode cosmology, territory, or myth into stone. While these theories remain speculative, they underscore the complexity and depth of thought required to create such a structure. Walking around the dolmen today, the scale becomes tangible. Each stone seems to assert its weight and permanence, the rough-hewn surfaces conveying both the labor and care involved in their placement. The surrounding countryside, olive groves, rolling hills, and the jagged silhouette of Peña de los Enamorados frames the monument, emphasizing its prominence and connection to the land. Even in modern times, the dolmen inspires awe, a reminder of human creativity, determination, and reverence for place. Yet, for all that is known, the Dolmen of Menga retains its mystery. The identities of its builders, the full extent of its ceremonial use, and the symbolic meaning of its alignment with the cliff face remain unresolved. How did prehistoric communities conceive such monumental architecture without written records or advanced tools? What stories, beliefs, and practices are encoded in the stones, lost to time yet preserved in their silent presence? Standing before the Dolmen of Menga, one is struck not only by the ingenuity of its construction, but also by the deliberate choices of its builders, the orientation, the scale, the selection of stones, and the shaping of interior spaces. Every detail seems purposeful, yet every detail also invites speculation, leaving the observer suspended between comprehension and wonder. It is a reminder that the past, while tangible in stone, often conceals as much as it reveals, and that the legacy of human aspiration can endure long after the details of belief have faded, as sunlight shifts across the limestone, casting deep shadows through the entrance and along the massive walls. The dolmen stands as both monument and mystery. It embodies the intersection of engineering, ritual, and the human impulse to leave a mark upon the landscape. Its silence is profound, yet it speaks to our curiosity, drawing us to question, explore, and imagine. And in that silence, one cannot help but ask, what truths, rituals, and knowledge are still hidden within the stones of the Dolmen of Menga, and how much of its story remains waiting to be uncovered in the ancient landscapes of Antequera? From the monumental stones of Antequera's Dolmen of Menga, where human ambition and ritual intersect in enduring limestone, our journey now moves eastward across continents and cultures to the rugged highlands of southern Georgia near the borderlands of the Lesser Caucasus. Here, perched atop a steep hill and overlooking verdant valleys, lies the Abuli Fortress, a cyclopean hill fort of prehistoric design, built with massive, unworked stones whose arrangement has long fascinated archaeologists and visitors alike. Approaching Abuli, the scale of the site is immediately arresting. The walls are composed of enormous boulders, carefully stacked without mortar, forming enclosures and defensive ramparts that hug the contours of the hilltop. The stones themselves vary in size from human-scale blocks to monolithic slabs weighing several tons. Some fit together so precisely that the walls appear almost sculpted, yet retain a raw, elemental quality. The fortress dominates the surrounding landscape, its silhouette etched against the sky, visible from miles across the valleys below. Even centuries of weathering cannot diminish its imposing presence. Abuli is part of a broader tradition of Cyclopean architecture in the South Caucasus, dating approximately to the 3rd or 2nd millennium BCE. Its builders remain mysterious, prehistoric communities whose cultural, social, and technological capacities are still being reconstructed from fragmentary evidence. Archaeologists identify Abuli primarily as a defensive hill fort, designed to protect its inhabitants from external threats. Yet the sheer size of the walls, the sophistication of construction, and the selection of stones suggest purposes that extend beyond simple fortification. Could Abuli have been a ceremonial or symbolic center, as well as a defensive stronghold? The engineering of Abuli is remarkable. Each boulder, regardless of size, was transported and positioned with careful attention to stability, forming walls that have endured millennia. No mortar was used, yet the weight, balance, and interlocking forms create fortifications that resist collapse and erosion. How did prehistoric builders coordinate the movement of such massive stones across steep slopes with only rudimentary tools and human labor? And beyond the technical challenge, what inspired the investment of such energy and resources in a single hilltop? The fortress is strategically positioned. From its vantage point, one can observe the surrounding terrain for miles, a natural lookout over fertile valleys and mountain passes. Such placement suggests acute awareness of geography and defense, yet it also raises questions about social and symbolic meaning. Was Abuli purely utilitarian, a place to defend against raiders and rival communities? Or did its location also reflect spiritual, political, or cosmological significance? Might the hill itself have been considered sacred, a liminal space bridging earth and sky, chosen deliberately for both its defensive advantages and symbolic resonance? The interiors of the fortifications add to the intrigue. Within the walls lie enclosures whose purposes remain speculative. Living quarters, storage areas, communal spaces, or perhaps ceremonial zones. Excavations have revealed fragments of pottery and tools, hinting at domestic and ritual activities. Yet no written records survive, leaving interpretation reliant on inference and comparison with other Cyclopean sites. Could these enclosures have hosted rituals, councils, or gatherings of leaders, blending practical defense with social and spiritual function? Some researchers note subtle alignments of the walls and entrances with cardinal points or natural features. Could these orientations have had astronomical significance, marking solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events? If so, the fortress would have served as both a defensive stronghold and a cosmic observatory, integrating human, terrestrial, and celestial understanding into a single monumental construction. Alternatively, these alignments may reflect symbolic relationships to the surrounding landscape, mountain peaks, rivers, or sacred locations, encoding meaning into stone without words. Fringe theories, while speculative, amplify the sense of mystery surrounding Abuli. Some propose that the Cyclopean construction was intended to intimidate rivals, conveying power through monumental scale and human ingenuity. Others suggest ritualistic or spiritual purpose. The labor of moving and placing enormous stones could itself have been an offering, a form of devotion encoded in the landscape. Could Abuli have been both fortress and temple, a place where defense, social cohesion, and ritual intersected seamlessly? Visiting the site today evokes a powerful sense of human ambition and endurance. The walls rise above the grassy slopes, irregular yet purposeful, their shadows stretching across terraces that hint at former pathways and enclosures. Wind sweeps through the stones, carrying echoes of centuries past, while the view from the hilltop offers a panorama of forests, valleys, and distant peaks. It is easy to imagine the fort bustling with activity, watchful guards patrolling the ramparts, villagers tending livestock, ceremonial leaders orchestrating rituals, all within a structure that embodies both order and mystery. Yet despite centuries of observation and study, Abuli resists complete understanding. Who precisely built these Cyclopean walls? What drove their construction beyond practical defense? What social, spiritual, or cosmic principles guided the placement of stones and the shaping of enclosures? And why, after centuries of use, was the fortress eventually abandoned, leaving only stone walls and the whisper of human presence behind? The Abuli Fortress is a reminder that the prehistoric world was neither simple nor primitive. It speaks to the human capacity to shape the landscape, to integrate utility with symbolism, to construct lasting monuments that communicate across millennia. Its massive stones are silent witnesses to ambition, labor, and belief, yet they leave their stories fragmentary and open to interpretation. As the sun descends behind the Caucasus ridges, casting long shadows over the walls of Abuli, the hilltop feels at once eternal and enigmatic. The stones, weathered and enduring, seem to ask a question without words, inviting contemplation, reflection, and wonder. And standing among the Cyclopean walls, one cannot help but ask, what secrets, rituals, and knowledge were preserved within the stones of Abuli Fortress? And how much of this ancient human ingenuity remains veiled, waiting for us to decipher the whispers of time? From the imposing Cyclopean walls of Georgia's Abuli Fortress, where human determination and mystery rise in stone atop a rugged hill, we now descend once again toward South America, into the mist-shrouded heights of the Andean cloud forests of northern Peru. Here, perched on precipitous cliffs and hidden within dense foliage, lie the enigmatic Chachapoya tombs, burial chambers that cling to vertical rock faces, defying easy access and comprehension, their presence as breathtaking as it is mysterious. Approaching these tombs is an experience of both awe and unease. The cliffs rise abruptly from forested valleys, shrouded in thick mist that drifts along steep slopes and jagged outcrops. Embedded into these sheer rock faces are rectangular stone enclosures, often capped with circular roofs, their masonry remarkably precise considering the challenging terrain. From below, they appear almost suspended in mid-air, as though gravity itself conspired to guard these sacred spaces. Narrow ledges and precarious paths wind through the forest, allowing only the most daring, or the most determined, to reach these high-perched monuments. The Chachapoya people, sometimes called the Warriors of the Clouds, flourished between roughly 900 and 1470 CE, long before the arrival of the Inca in the region. Archaeologists suggest that the tombs served as burial chambers for nobility and elite families, with some structures containing human remains, mummies, and funerary offerings. Yet, despite these findings, the precise reasoning behind their placement, high above valleys, often inaccessible, remains enigmatic. Was it practical, ritualistic, symbolic, or all three? Constructing these tombs on cliffs required extraordinary skill, organization, and courage. Stones, quarried elsewhere, were transported to sites that, even today, challenge modern climbers. Walls were laid with meticulous care, producing chambers that endure centuries of rainfall, seismic activity, and relentless growth of tropical vegetation. How did the Chachapoya manage such feats of engineering in these isolated, vertical environments? Were ramps, scaffolding, or temporary platforms employed? Or did they possess techniques now lost to time? And beyond logistics, what motivated the labor required to embed these tombs in such inaccessible places? Many researchers believe the tombs' locations were intentional for spiritual or symbolic reasons. Cliffs may have been perceived as liminal spaces, bridging the world of the living and the afterlife, connecting earth, sky, and the sacred. Some chambers are oriented to face prominent landmarks, valleys, or mountain ridges. Did these alignments hold astronomical, religious, or cosmological significance? Were they designed to capture the first rays of sunlight at certain times of the year, illuminating the tombs and honoring ancestors? Or were these placements more practical, ensuring protection from tomb robbers and scavengers in a land where concealment could preserve the sanctity of the dead? The tombs themselves vary in form and design. Many are rectangular or square, with stone walls finely fitted without mortar, while others feature circular, beehive-like roofs capped by intricately carved stones. Some enclosures contain niches for offerings, while others appear empty, their purposes still debated. Inside, the chambers convey a sense of solemn intimacy, the rough-hewn stones reflecting the skill and care of builders who labored not for grandeur, but for ritual precision and reverence. Could the variation in tomb design reflect differences in social hierarchy, clan affiliation, or spiritual role within Chachapoya society? Fringe interpretations add to the tomb's mystique. Some suggest the Chachapoya intentionally created these skyward graves as a form of aerial defense, protecting sacred remains from outsiders. Others propose that the tombs were part of a complex network of spiritual markers, signaling territories, sacred routes, or cosmological alignments. Some enthusiasts even imagine a more mysterious scenario, a civilization capable of manipulating not only stone, but the perception of space itself, integrating burial practices seamlessly with the vertical landscape. While such claims remain speculative, they illustrate the human fascination with the ingenuity and audacity embodied in these cliffside tombs. The environment amplifies their impact. Mist drifts continuously through the forests, shrouding the tombs in ephemeral veils that appear and vanish with the wind. The sound of distant waterfalls and the calls of unseen birds create a haunting soundtrack, evoking a sense that the Chachapoya still linger in spirit, guardians of these high-altitude monuments. Visibility is fleeting, and the tombs seem to materialize and dissolve within the landscape, a dynamic interaction between stone, forest, and sky. Even after decades of exploration, questions remain. Who exactly was buried in each tomb, and what determined the choice of location or architectural form? How did the Chachapoya engineer these constructions with such precision on cliffs so steep that even modern climbers struggle to reach them? And perhaps most perplexing of all, why choose vertical isolation as a hallmark of funerary practice rather than building in more accessible plains or valleys nearby? Standing before these high cloud tombs, one is struck by a combination of human ambition, reverence, and mastery of environment. The Chachapoya's choice to integrate architecture seamlessly with dramatic landscapes suggests a worldview in which geography, ritual, and mortality were intertwined. The tombs endure as silent witnesses, perched between the heavens and the earth, mediating a space where life and death, nature and human intent intersect. As clouds swirl around the stone enclosures, obscuring them one moment and revealing them the next, the Chachapoya tombs evoke a profound sense of mystery. They remind us that human ingenuity often takes unexpected forms, that monumental efforts can be hidden from view, and that some of history's most remarkable achievements are concealed in places both remote and vertical. And in that mist-laden silence, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets, stories, and beliefs were preserved within the walls of these cliffside tombs? And how much of the Chachapoya world, now lost to time and cloud, remains waiting to be discovered? From the cloud-shrouded cliffs of Peru's Chachapoya tombs, where the dead were placed in perilous heights as guardians of memory, our journey now takes us westward across the Mediterranean Sea to the island of Sardinia, where another ancient culture left behind monumental testaments to human ambition and ritual. Here, scattered across rolling hills and rocky landscapes, lie the giants' tombs, or Tombe dei Giganti, prehistoric collective burial sites whose scale, form, and enduring mystery continue to captivate scholars and visitors alike. Approaching these megalithic tombs, the first impression is one of awe. Long rows of upright stones rise from the earth, forming elongated rectangular burial chambers often crowned by a central stele, like a sentinel marking the passage between life and death. Some tombs extend over 30 meters in length, dwarfing any ordinary human scale, giving rise to their evocative name, the Tombs of Giants. In certain lights, the stones seem almost to glow, their surfaces warmed by the Mediterranean sun, yet their shadows stretch deep and solemn across the surrounding terrain, emphasizing their monumental presence and the quiet power of their geometry. The giants' tombs are associated with the Nuragic civilization, flourishing on Sardinia from approximately 1800 to 500 BCE. Archaeologists interpret these tombs primarily as collective burial sites, housing the remains of multiple generations within a single monumental structure. Excavations reveal chambers filled with skeletal remains, pottery fragments, and ritual objects. Yet even with these discoveries, much about their construction, social significance, and symbolic meaning remains unclear. How did the Nuragic people coordinate labor, transport massive stones, and arrange them with such precision, all without the wheel or advanced machinery? The architectural design of the tombs is both functional and symbolic. Most feature a long gallery divided by upright slabs, capped by horizontal stones forming the roof. Many tombs end with a semicircular facade, sometimes with a single towering stele at its center. This combination of linearity and focal point suggests deliberate intention, guiding the eye and the spirit along a journey from entrance to apex. Could this have been a ritual path, a way to move both the living and the spirits of the dead through symbolic space? Or did the design reflect broader cosmological ideas, aligning human life with the cycles of the sun, the moon, or the stars above? The scale of the stones continues to provoke speculation. Many weigh several tons, yet were transported from quarries located considerable distances from the tomb sites. The engineering precision is remarkable. Stones interlock with minimal gaps, providing structural stability that has allowed the tombs to endure millennia of weathering and seismic activity. What methods enabled such feats of construction? Were there lost technologies, ingenious systems of levers and ramps, or purely human determination and organization? And what motivated communities to expend such extraordinary effort on monuments that were not built for daily life, but for the dead? Some tombs are aligned in relation to the landscape, often situated near water sources, prominent hills, or ridges visible for miles. Others appear oriented toward celestial phenomena, such as the rising or setting sun on solstices. Were these alignments intended to guide the spirit of the deceased, to mark sacred geography, or to anchor the living within cycles of nature and time? And why were these tombs collective rather than individual? A reflection, perhaps, of a societal emphasis on community, ancestry, and shared memory rather than singular achievement. Fringe theories have emerged over the years, inspired by the sheer scale and evocative name of the giants' tombs. Some suggest the structures were built by beings of extraordinary stature, giving literal context to their name, a notion supported more by legend than evidence. Others speculate about ritual or astronomical purposes. Could the long galleries and central steles have served as markers for solstices, lunar cycles, or even star alignments, integrating the dead into a celestial framework? While mainstream archaeology emphasizes cultural, social, and practical explanations, the air of mystery surrounding the tombs invites imaginative speculation. Visiting a giant's tomb today is an experience of both scale and silence. The Mediterranean landscape, with its low scrub, rocky outcrops, and distant mountains, frames the stones in a natural amphitheater. Standing before the tomb, one senses the physical presence of human labor, the echo of rituals long vanished, and the passage of countless generations. Shadows play along the stones as the sun arcs across the sky, emphasizing the intentional geometry and the enduring authority of the structure. Even without direct evidence, it is easy to imagine ceremonies, offerings, and communal gatherings unfolding here thousands of years ago, all bound together by a reverence for ancestors and the sacred cycles of life and death. Yet, despite centuries of study, questions remain. Who precisely was interred within these tombs, and how were these individuals selected or honored? What was the social and religious framework that guided the Nuragic people in building these monuments? Why do some tombs feature additional standing stones, while others remain simpler? And what does this tell us about hierarchy, ritual, or regional variation? And finally, how did the Nuragic people conceive of death, memory, and community in ways that could inspire such monumental expression in stone? The giants' tombs endure as silent witnesses to a civilization whose voice is only partially understood. Their stones, enduring yet enigmatic, connect human ambition to landscape, community, and the passage of time. They remind us that the desire to honor, to memorialize, and to reach across generations is as old as humanity itself. As the afternoon sun casts long shadows along the tomb's elongated gallery, illuminating the weathered surfaces and the carefully placed stones, one cannot help but feel a sense of reverence and curiosity. The tombs are both ancient and immediate, monumental yet intimate, physical yet symbolic, a testament to human ingenuity, ritual, and the eternal quest to leave a mark upon the world. And standing quietly before the Tombe dei Giganti, one cannot help but ask, what secrets, ceremonies, and knowledge remain hidden within these stones, and how much of the Nuragic world, like the giants themselves, endures only in shadow, waiting to be rediscovered? From the monumental stones of Sardinia's giants' tombs, where human communities immortalized collective memory in enduring megaliths, our journey moves eastward across the Mediterranean to the island of Cyprus, where the Neolithic settlement of Khirokitia rises from the rolling hills near the Moroni River. Here, within the fertile plains and low-lying hills, lie the remains of a village that flourished nearly 7,000 years ago, composed of circular, cave-like structures that whisper secrets of human adaptation, ingenuity, and ritual practice. At first glance, Khirokitia is deceptively simple. The settlement consists of closely packed circular houses made from stone and mud brick, their low walls curving gently to form enclosed living spaces. Some of these homes are remarkably well preserved, revealing doorways, niches, and interior partitions that hint at daily life, social organization, and communal interaction. Walking among the ruins today, one can imagine the quiet hum of activity. Families tending hearths, children weaving between walls, the smell of food cooking over open fires, and the constant rhythm of a small, tight-knit community sustaining itself in a challenging landscape. Archaeologists date Khirokitia to roughly 7,000 to 6,000 BCE, making it one of the earliest known permanent settlements in the eastern Mediterranean. Its inhabitants were skilled farmers, raising crops and livestock, while also exploiting the surrounding resources of forest, river, and coastline. Yet, despite extensive study, the purpose and organization of its structures raise questions that endure. Why were the houses circular, often with walls so thick and rooms so tightly clustered? Was this purely functional, providing defense and insulation, or did it reflect symbolic or social principles, perhaps emphasizing unity, hierarchy, or ritual coherence within the community? The construction techniques are striking for their time. Stones are carefully stacked, forming walls that support rounded roofs, some possibly made of timber and reed. Floors are often compacted, and hearths occupy central positions within the rooms, suggesting that domestic and communal life centered on fire and warmth. Yet the care in construction implies more than survival. The circular forms and careful arrangement of homes suggest aesthetic or symbolic intention, a spatial language that encoded identity, social structure, or even cosmology into stone and earth. One of Khirokitia's enduring mysteries lies in its layout and spatial organization. Houses are arranged along concentric circles, sometimes with narrow passageways and alleys linking them. The outer ring seems to demarcate boundaries, perhaps for defense or delineation of communal versus individual spaces. But why this concentric form? Could it have held symbolic meaning, mirroring cosmic cycles, social hierarchy, or spiritual concepts? Some researchers have suggested that the layout facilitated collective rituals or community gatherings, turning domestic architecture into a stage for social cohesion and shared identity. Evidence of ritual activity adds another layer of intrigue. Burials within the settlement, often under floors or in designated pits, indicate that the inhabitants intertwined domestic and funerary life. Some skeletons are accompanied by offerings, shells, tools, or small figurines, hinting at belief systems that connected the living and the dead. Were these practices part of a broader cosmology, a way of embedding ancestors into daily life? And how much of this belief system is encoded into the very shape of the houses, the narrow alleys, and the circular plazas? Fringe theories occasionally emerge around Khirokitia, fueled by its antiquity and enigmatic architecture. Some propose that the circular forms and concentric layout were designed for astronomical observation, aligning homes or communal areas with the sun, moon, or seasonal markers. Others suggest symbolic purposes, imagining the village as a microcosm of the universe, where circular homes represent cycles of life, death, and regeneration. While such ideas are speculative, they highlight the human desire to interpret geometry and pattern as reflections of belief, purpose, or cosmic understanding. Visiting Khirokitia today is an exercise in temporal imagination. The hills are gentle, the surrounding landscape a patchwork of fields, trees, and stone outcrops. Standing among the ruins, the circular walls evoke a sense of continuity and intimacy, drawing the visitor into the rhythms of a vanished community. Sunlight illuminates stone surfaces and hearths, revealing the precision and care with which the inhabitants built their homes. The settlement's compactness, its concentric planning, and the small scale of individual houses all speak to a life lived in close connection with neighbors, the land, and perhaps unseen spiritual forces. Yet for all that is known, questions remain. Why was Khirokitia abandoned around 6000 BCE? Was it environmental change, social transformation, disease, or other pressures that led its inhabitants to leave? How did they conceive of space, ritual, and community within their circular walls? And what social structures governed daily life? And perhaps most profoundly, what knowledge, beliefs, and practices have been lost, leaving only these stone remnants as silent witnesses to a human story nearly 9,000 years old? The settlement endures not only as a physical site, but as a reflection of human ingenuity, adaptation, and symbolic thought. Its circular homes, compact streets, and embedded burial practices demonstrate an early sophistication in architecture, social cohesion, and ritual awareness. Even in decay, the structures speak, inviting reflection on the lives of people who, without writing or formal records, crafted a settlement that balanced survival, community, and meaning. As the sun dips low over the hills of Cyprus, casting warm light across the rounded walls of Khirokitia, the settlement appears simultaneously timeless and fragile, a whisper of human presence preserved in stone. It is a place where daily life, social order, and spiritual practice may have converged, offering a window into a world that predates written history but resonates across millennia. And in that quiet, sunlit silence, one cannot help but wonder what secrets, stories, and knowledge remain hidden within the circular walls of Khirokitia, and how much of the Neolithic world, shaped by human hands and imagination, still lies waiting to be understood. From the Neolithic circular homes of Khirokitia, where ancient communities encoded ritual and domestic life into stone, we now journey eastward to the rolling plains of the Golan Heights, where a far older and far more enigmatic arrangement of stone awaits. Rujm el-Hiri, also known as Gilgal Refā'īm, the Stonehenge of the Levant. Here, nestled in the arid, basalt-strewn landscape, lie concentric rings of massive stones, silent yet imposing, their purpose and construction shrouded in millennia of mystery. Approaching Rujm el-Hiri, the scale is immediately arresting. Viewed from above, the site reveals a vast series of concentric stone circles, 5 in total, surrounding a central mound, forming a geometric pattern that is both precise and monumental. Each ring is composed of basalt boulders, some weighing several tons, carefully arranged to create a sequence of concentric enclosures over a diameter exceeding 150 meters. The sheer effort required to transport, shape, and position these stones in a deliberate pattern speaks to a community of remarkable skill, organization, and vision. The central mound, partially collapsed but still imposing, adds a focal point to the composition. It rises above the surrounding rings, like a sacred nucleus or celestial marker, drawing attention and framing the structure within the harsh volcanic terrain. Shadows from the low-lying sun stretch across the rings, highlighting subtle variations in stone placement and the careful symmetry of the design. Even today, standing at the site evokes a sense of ritualized space, a place deliberately constructed to engage the viewer, the participants, and perhaps even the cosmos itself. Archaeologists date Rujm el-Hiri to the early Bronze Age, around 3000 BCE, though some suggest earlier origins, linking it to Neolithic ceremonial traditions in the Levant. Excavations have uncovered basalt dolmens and burial chambers at the site, indicating that Rujm el-Hiri may have served a funerary or ritual purpose function, though its precise purpose remains unknown. Were these circles tombs for the elite, ceremonial arenas for community gatherings, or astronomical observatories aligned with solstices and lunar cycles? The evidence is tantalizing but incomplete, leaving as many questions as answers. The construction itself is remarkable. Unlike the more famous Stonehenge in England, Rujm el-Hiri lacks intricate carvings or dressed stone, yet its concentric geometry, precision of spacing, and integration with the landscape suggest profound understanding of both engineering and symbolic design. Some stones are positioned to mark points of significance within the central mound, creating a sense of deliberate orchestration. How did a prehistoric community, working without written records or modern tools, conceive such a complex layout? And why choose this desolate, basaltic terrain for such an ambitious project? Several scholars note that Rujm el-Hiri may have been aligned to celestial events. Some suggest that the outer circles correspond with sunrise and sunset during solstices, implying an astronomical function or ceremonial calendar. If true, this alignment would require meticulous observation over years, integrating the cycles of the sun with stone, landscape, and ritual. Could the site have been used to track time, seasons, or agricultural cycles? Or did the builders imbue the stones with symbolic meaning, encoding cosmological knowledge in their arrangement? Fringe theories abound, fueled by the site's scale, precision, and mysterious central mound. Some suggest that Rujm el-Hiri functioned as a portal for spiritual or mystical experiences, a space where the living could commune with the dead, or where cosmic energies were believed to converge. Others speculate about prehistoric ceremonial astronomy, positing that the concentric rings were designed to amplify sound or guide movement during ritual observances. While these ideas remain speculative, they underscore the human fascination with structures that defy easy explanation, monuments that blend practicality with the enigmatic. Visiting Rujm el-Hiri today is an experience of both scale and solitude. The surrounding landscape is vast and stark, punctuated by basalt outcrops, dry riverbeds, and distant mountains. Walking among the concentric rings, the enormity of the stones and the precision of their placement create a palpable sense of human intent reaching across millennia. The silence is profound, broken only by wind sweeping across the open plains, as if the site itself holds its own narrative, waiting for attentive observers to decode its messages. Despite extensive study, many mysteries persist. What rituals, if any, took place within these concentric rings? Were the stones intended to mark burial sites, guide celestial observation, or serve as a focus for communal gatherings? And how did the builders transport and position such massive stones with the technology of their era? Each unanswered question deepens the allure, making Rujm el-Hiri a symbol of human ambition intertwined with the unknown. The site also prompts reflection on the relationship between human societies and the landscape. Rujm el-Hiri occupies a volcanic plateau, a place simultaneously forbidding and sacred. The choice of location, combined with the concentric architecture, suggests a deliberate integration of stone, earth, and sky. A physical manifestation of human perception of place, ritual, and the cosmos. Perhaps the builders sought not only to honor the dead, but to encode their understanding of the universe into enduring stone. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the concentric rings, the geometry of the site comes alive. Light and shadow animate the stones, revealing the care and precision of prehistoric hands. It is a landscape that speaks of human ingenuity, ritual intention, and the enduring desire to connect the ephemeral with the eternal. and in the quiet of the Golan Heights, amidst basalt stones weathered by millennia, one cannot help but wonder, what knowledge, beliefs, or ceremonies were preserved within the rings of Rujm el-Hiri, and how much of its story remains hidden, waiting to be uncovered beneath the silence of the Levant. From the silent stones of Rujm el-Hiri, whose concentric rings hint at ritual, cosmology, and the mysteries of the Levant, we now descend beneath the Aegean waves into the crystalline waters off the coast of Laconia, Greece, to uncover a city that time and tide have claimed, the submerged ruins of Pavlopetri. Unlike the cliffside tombs of the Chachapoya or the megalithic monuments of Sardinia, Pavlopetri exists both above and below perception, a place where architecture and water intertwine, concealing millennia of human history beneath the ocean's surface. Cited by divers and archaeologists, the city is immediately arresting. From above, the sea appears calm, deceptively placid. But beneath the waves, the layout of streets, buildings, and courtyards emerges with astonishing clarity. Rectangular foundations, doorways, and wells are discernible in the shallow seabed, forming what is believed to be the oldest submerged town in the world, dating to around 3000 BCE. Pavlopetri stretches over 4 hectares, its urban plan remarkably sophisticated, with streets intersecting at right angles, stone-built houses aligned with precision, and spaces that suggest communal and ritual functions. The engineering and planning are striking. Streets are wide and deliberate, some paved with large flat stones, while buildings exhibit multiple rooms, storage areas, and courtyards. Wells and cisterns indicate a nuanced understanding of water management, essential for sustaining urban life in a coastal environment. The careful layout implies not only functional sophistication, but also social organization, a community capable of coordinating labor, allocating space, and sustaining complex daily routines. How did these early inhabitants achieve such urban coherence nearly 5,000 years ago, long before the rise of classical Greek cities? Pavlopetri's submersion adds a layer of mystery. Geological and climatic studies suggest that tectonic activity, rising sea levels, and gradual subsidence caused the city to sink beneath the waves around 1000 BCE. Yet questions remain. Was the flooding abrupt or gradual? Did the inhabitants abandon the city before inundation, or were they caught unprepared? And why does the city appear so intact, as if paused midlife, with streets and doorways preserved like a snapshot of ancient daily life frozen in time? Explorations of Pavlopetri reveal not only architecture, but evidence of economic, social, and possibly ceremonial activity. Pottery shards, stone tools, and remnants of marine trade indicate that the city was connected to a broader network of Bronze Age civilizations across the Aegean. Could Pavlopetri have been a thriving commercial hub, a ceremonial center, or both? The juxtaposition of carefully planned urban spaces with submerged mystery invites speculation about how ancient societies navigated the tension between human ambition and the forces of nature. The preservation beneath the sea is remarkable. Layers of sand, silt, and marine life have coated the stones, protecting the layout from erosion and offering archaeologists a rare glimpse into prehistoric urban planning. Yet, the same water that safeguards Pavlopetri also obscures it, limiting access and leaving many questions unresolved. What daily routines took place along these submerged streets? What stories unfolded within the homes, workshops, and courtyards now resting beneath waves? How did the inhabitants perceive their environment? And how did they respond to the slow encroachment of the sea? Fringe theories and speculation emerge naturally from such a site. Some suggest Pavlopetri may have been intentionally built near fault lines or marginal lands for reasons we cannot now discern, perhaps as a ritual statement or a cosmological alignment. Others propose that the city's layout could encode astronomical or calendrical knowledge, its streets and houses forming a map of celestial cycles visible only to those who understood its geometry. While such interpretations remain speculative, they underscore the interplay of human ingenuity and mystery that defines Pavlopetri. The experience of observing the city, whether through diving or remote imaging technology, is both humbling and surreal. Sunlight refracts through the water, illuminating the foundations and casting shadows that accentuate the geometry of streets and buildings. The city feels alive, as if waiting to reveal the rhythm of ancient life to those patient enough to listen. Underwater currents whisper past walls and doorways, a subtle reminder that time continues to move, erasing some details while preserving others in this aquatic archive. Despite decades of study, Pavlopetri holds many secrets. Who exactly lived here, and what social structures governed their lives? How did they navigate the challenges of coastal settlement, trade, and ritual practice? What prompted the abandonment of the city, and how quickly did nature reclaim it? Each unanswered question deepens the sense of wonder, offering a window into human resilience, creativity, and the interplay between civilization and environment. The submerged ruins also invite reflection on the ephemeral nature of human achievement. Pavlopetri, once a bustling hub of daily life, now lies beneath water, simultaneously preserved and hidden. Its streets, houses, and wells convey sophistication, yet their story is incomplete, leaving us to imagine the rhythm of life, the voices, and the aspirations of a people long gone. In its silence, the city embodies both the endurance and fragility of human endeavor. As sunlight glimmers through the shallow Aegean waters, illuminating the submerged streets and stone foundations, Pavlopetri emerges as both monument and mystery, a reminder of human ambition, adaptation, and the enduring pull of curiosity across millennia. And as we hover above this underwater city, one cannot help but ask, what lives, stories, and knowledge were submerged along with Pavlopetri, and how much of this ancient world still lies hidden beneath the waves, waiting to be rediscovered by those who dare to explore? From the sun-dappled ruins of Pavlopetri, submerged beneath the Aegean Sea yet frozen in time, we now ascend to the high-altitude plains of the Andean Altiplano, where the air is thin, the wind sharp, and the horizon stretches in vast, austere expanses. Here lies Puma Punku, part of the greater Tiwanaku complex in Bolivia, a site of astonishing precision and enigmatic construction that has baffled scholars and travelers alike for centuries. The first encounter with Puma Punku is startling. Massive stone blocks lie strewn across the plateau, their surfaces smoothed and cut with remarkable accuracy. Some weigh over 100 tons, yet are positioned with interlocking notches, grooves, and T-shaped connectors that suggest an understanding of geometry and engineering far beyond what is expected of a civilization existing nearly 1,500 years ago. The stones themselves are a mix of sandstone and andesite, quarried from sites miles away, then transported and assembled into a layout whose full original design is only partially understood. Walking among these monolithic fragments, one is struck by both scale and precision. Walls that once rose in perfect alignment now lie fractured, yet their ingenuity speaks across centuries. The Tiwanaku civilization, flourishing between 500 and 1000 CE, is credited with constructing Puma Punku. Mainstream explanations suggest these were ceremonial and administrative spaces, part of a sacred precinct that governed spiritual and political life. Yet the methods remain puzzling. How did workers cut granite and andesite with such clean, precise edges, often forming right angles, smooth surfaces, and perfectly aligned grooves? Some stones are shaped with precision tolerances that modern machinery would envy. How were these massive blocks transported across rugged terrain without wheeled vehicles? And why did Tiwanaku engineers choose to construct interlocking systems that suggest an advanced understanding of modular architecture? The scale and craftsmanship invite speculation about purpose as well as technique. Some researchers propose that Puma Punku served as a ritual platform, perhaps part of ceremonies tied to cosmology, astronomy, or the worship of deities associated with the sun, water, and fertility. Others suggest the site was a technological or experimental hub, where stoneworking knowledge was preserved and tested. The alignment of some structures appears deliberate, oriented along cardinal directions or possibly celestial markers. Yet the evidence is fragmented, leaving room for questions rather than certainties. What makes Puma Punku particularly perplexing is the combination of massive scale and intricate detail. Stone blocks are cut with such precision that some have grooves so fine they can guide the placement of other blocks with near imperceptible tolerance. Certain stones are carved with elaborate geometric patterns, channels, and sockets whose functional purpose remains debated. Were these purely architectural elements intended to create stability and interlocking strength? Or did they carry symbolic, ceremonial, or even astronomical significance? Transporting the stones is another enduring enigma. Quarries lie kilometers away from the site, across uneven plains and steep slopes. Some stones weigh upwards of 100 tons. Evidence of ramps, sleds, or rollers is scant, yet the placement of stones suggests not only brute force, but careful coordination and knowledge of physics. How did the Tiwanaku people overcome these challenges? And why invest such monumental effort into a site whose function seems primarily ceremonial rather than practical? Speculative theories abound, fueled by the precision and audacity of the construction. Some fringe interpretations suggest lost technology, advanced machinery, or even otherworldly assistance, explanations that mainstream archaeology does not support, yet which underscore the human fascination with structures that defy conventional understanding. Others propose that Puma Punku represents a society with an advanced understanding of modular construction, geometry, and engineering, knowledge that has since been lost to time. In either case, the site embodies a dialogue between ingenuity, ambition, and mystery. Visiting Puma Punku today is an experience of stark contrast. The surrounding altiplano stretches endlessly under a vast sky, wind sweeping across plains dotted with scattered stone blocks, some standing, many fallen. The high-altitude sun casts deep shadows, emphasizing the sheer size of the stones and the precision of their cuts. Among the ruins, the imagination is invited to reconstruct walls, terraces, and ceremonial platforms to envision the human effort required to carve, transport, and assemble each monumental piece with meticulous care. There is a quiet majesty here, a sense that these stones, though fallen, continue to convey the ambition and vision of the builders. Even after decades of study, Puma Punku continues to provoke questions. What was the full design of the original complex? How did Tiwanaku architects achieve such accuracy without metal tools capable of cutting hard stone? Were these techniques purely iterative, refined over generations? Or did they represent specialized knowledge held by a select group of artisans? And, perhaps most provocatively, what cultural, spiritual, or symbolic meanings were encoded into the very geometry of the stones? The ruins of Puma Punku speak to a civilization that understood both the physical and the conceptual dimensions of architecture. They demonstrate extraordinary skill, ambition, and attention to detail, while simultaneously leaving room for speculation about the processes and purposes that drove such achievements. The fallen stones, scattered across the plateau, act as fragments of a larger story, a puzzle whose pieces are both tangible and elusive. As the wind sweeps across the altiplano, stirring dust and casting fleeting shadows across the ancient blocks, Puma Punku emerges as both a monument and a mystery. Its stones bear silent witness to human innovation and creativity, yet they also invite reflection on what has been lost. Knowledge, techniques, and the intentions of a civilization whose voice now survives primarily through its extraordinary stonework. And standing among the massive blocks, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets, technologies, and insights did the builders of Puma Punku possess, and how much of their world, encoded in stone and geometry, remains waiting to be understood? From the stone precision of Puma Punku, where the hands of the Tiwanaku shaped massive blocks with astonishing skill, we now turn northward across the Americas to the arid landscapes of the Colorado Plateau, where the ruins of cliff dwellings, kivas, and pueblos tell a story of human ingenuity, community, and sudden mystery. Here, among towering mesas, deep canyons, and windswept plateaus, the ancestral Puebloans, often referred to as the Anasazi, flourished, only to vanish from their settlements centuries ago, leaving behind architectural marvels and questions that persist to this day. The first impression is one of awe. Sunlight strikes sandstone cliffs, revealing terraces carved into rock faces, multi-story dwellings built of precisely fitted stone and adobe, and ceremonial kivas sunk into the earth. Sites such as Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, and Canyon de Chelly display extraordinary architectural sophistication. Great houses with hundreds of rooms, intricate road networks, and structures aligned with celestial events. Standing in the shadow of these cliff dwellings, one is struck by both the ingenuity and the intimacy of these communities, which harmonized with the land while reaching for permanence. The ancestral Puebloans thrived for centuries, from approximately 900 to 1300 CE, developing advanced agricultural techniques, trade networks extending hundreds of miles, and complex social structures. Their buildings reveal not only technical skill, but also symbolic sophistication. Many structures align with solar and lunar cycles, suggesting a deep understanding of astronomy. Roads and outlying settlements hint at regional coordination, while pottery, textiles, and tools reveal a culture rich in creativity and resourcefulness. Yet, despite this apparent stability and ingenuity, the once flourishing communities were largely abandoned by the 14th century, leaving behind walls, artifacts, and unanswered questions. Mainstream explanations for the Anasazi Disappearance often focus on environmental and social factors. Droughts, possibly lasting decades, would have strained water supplies and agriculture, making survival increasingly difficult. Resource depletion, soil exhaustion, and overpopulation may have exacerbated these pressures, prompting migration in search of more sustainable lands. Intergroup conflict, disease, or social upheaval could also have played a role, creating conditions that compelled communities to abandon even the most fortified settlements. Yet for all the explanations, the story remains enigmatic. The scale of planning and effort evident in Chaco Canyon, with its massive stone structures, ceremonial kivas, and long roads, suggests a society deeply invested in place and community. How could such a sophisticated culture, capable of monumental construction and long-distance trade, simply disappear? Were migrations gradual, with families moving silently over generations, or was there a more abrupt catalyst that forced entire communities to leave at once? And what happened to their cultural knowledge, their rituals, and the symbolic meaning embedded in their architecture? Evidence offers hints, but rarely answers. Some sites show signs of fire or abandonment under duress, while others appear meticulously vacated, with valuables left behind and ceremonial spaces intact. Certain kivas display signs of ritual closure, suggesting that departures may have been intentional and guided by belief systems or cultural protocols. Could these migrations have been ceremonial as well as practical, a spiritual journey as much as a response to ecological stress? Speculative theories add further intrigue. Some suggest that astronomical phenomena such as rare solar or lunar events may have influenced timing or ritual significance in relocation. Others propose that contact with other cultures, perhaps through trade or migration, shaped decisions in ways that remain invisible in the archaeological record. More fringe interpretations hint at spiritual or even otherworldly forces, using the sudden disappearance to inspire narratives of mystery and unexplained intervention. While these ideas are conjectural, they reflect the human impulse to seek meaning when confronted with abrupt absence and enduring monuments. Visiting Anasazi sites today is both humbling and surreal. The cliff dwellings cling to sandstone walls as if defying gravity, while the surrounding canyons stretch into silence and solitude. The geometry of the buildings, the alignment of ceremonial spaces, and the remnants of roads and outlying settlements evoke a civilization that valued precision, ritual, and connection, both to each other and to the land. Walking among these ruins, one senses the rhythm of daily life. Children weaving between rooms, elders conducting ceremonies, the exchange of goods and ideas across distant settlements. And yet, that life is absent, leaving only stone, dust, and silence. Despite decades of study, fundamental questions remain. Why did the Anasazi abandon such sophisticated urban centers, fully capable of sustaining life? How did they choose their new destinations, and what paths did their migrations follow? What knowledge, traditions, and technologies were carried forward, and what was irrevocably lost? And perhaps most compelling, how did a people so in tune with landscape, architecture, and the cycles of the heavens disappear without leaving a clear trace of their final destinations? The Anasazi Disappearance is a reminder that even societies of remarkable ingenuity are vulnerable to the forces of environment, social change, and unforeseen circumstance. Their abandoned homes, carefully constructed and aligned with precision, endure as both a testament to human creativity and a silent question about impermanence. As the sun casts its golden light across cliff faces and canyon floors, illuminating the doorways, terraces, and ceremonial kivas, one cannot help but feel the weight of absence. The echoes of the Anasazi linger in the stone, the dust, and the wind sweeping through deserted corridors. And standing quietly among the ruins, one is left to wonder, where did the Anasazi go, and what stories, knowledge, and culture vanished with them, leaving behind only stone and shadow to hint at a once thriving civilization? From the arid canyons and cliff dwellings of the Anasazi, where silence and stone bear witness to vanished communities, we now traverse thousands of miles across the Pacific to the remote island of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia. Here lies Nan Madol, an extraordinary city built upon a labyrinth of artificial islets, where massive basalt stones rise from turquoise waters, forming canals, ceremonial platforms, and imposing structures that defy explanation. The site is often called the Venice of the Pacific, yet its scale, precision, and mystery set it apart from any known urban complex. Approaching Nan Madol by boat, the first impression is surreal. Canals weave between rectangular islets, once bustling with activity, now quiet except for the lapping of waves and the calls of seabirds. Each islet, constructed from enormous basalt columns weighing several tons, forms platforms for temples, residences, and tombs. Some stones are cut with remarkable precision, stacked in towering walls, forming structures whose weight and arrangement challenge conventional understanding of prehistoric engineering. How were these blocks transported across water, lifted into place, and aligned so meticulously without metal tools or modern machinery? The answers remain elusive. Nan Madol flourished as the ceremonial and political center of the Saudeleur dynasty, which ruled Pohnpei from around 500 to 1600 CE. The city's layout is intricate. More than 90 artificial islets sit atop a lagoon, linked by a network of canals and tidal channels. Scholars suggest that these islets were carefully planned to reflect social hierarchy and ritual significance, with central islets reserved for rulers and temples, while peripheral islets housed commoners, craftsmen, and ceremonial spaces. Yet despite decades of study, much about the city's construction, organization, and purpose continues to puzzle researchers. The construction techniques are astonishing. Basalt columns were quarried from the island's interior, transported to the lagoon, and stacked without mortar, relying on gravity and precise placement to maintain stability. Many walls rise over 6 meters high, with individual stones weighing several tons. Some stones are carefully shaped to fit together with near-perfect alignment, forming platforms and passageways that have endured centuries of tropical storms, high tides, and shifting earth. How the Saudeleur accomplished this feat, balancing human labor, logistical planning, and engineering knowledge, remains one of Nan Madol's greatest mysteries. Functionally, Nan Madol served multiple roles: political, ceremonial, and possibly even defensive. The canals suggest control over water flow and access, while the islets themselves create a sense of separation and hierarchy. Tombs, built into prominent platforms, indicate that the city was also a place of ancestor veneration and sacred ritual. Some islets appear deliberately aligned with astronomical or seasonal markers, hinting at a cosmological dimension to their design. Were these structures built to embody social order, spiritual authority, or both? The evidence is tantalizing yet incomplete. Beyond practical explanations, Nan Madol has inspired speculation. Oral histories suggest that the city's construction involved sorcery or supernatural assistance, with basalt stones said to have been moved magically from distant quarries. While such accounts are mythological, they underscore the awe with which the site has been regarded for centuries. More analytical theories propose that the city reflects advanced knowledge of hydrology, urban planning, and communal labor organization, a civilization capable of large-scale coordination in an environment that presented formidable logistical challenges. Visiting Nan Madol today is an experience of wonder and reflection. The islets rise from the calm lagoon like ancient sentinels, their walls dark with age, overgrown with moss and tropical vegetation. Water channels glisten between them, creating an impression of both isolation and connectivity, a city built to integrate with its aquatic environment. Walking among these ruins, it is possible to imagine the hum of ceremonial life, priests chanting on temple platforms, rulers issuing commands, workers transporting stones with ropes and levers, and the daily rhythm of a city alive with purpose and hierarchy. Yet all of this exists only in the mind's eye, as the structures themselves remain silent. Despite extensive study, many questions endure. How exactly were the basalt columns transported and assembled with such precision? Was Nan Madol purely ceremonial, or did it function as a living urban center for thousands of residents? What motivated the Saudeleur dynasty to construct such an ambitious, isolated city, and why did the dynasty eventually collapse around the early 17th century? Archaeological evidence hints at social unrest, resource strain, and shifting political structures, yet the full story remains obscured beneath centuries of oral history and tropical vegetation. Nan Madol challenges assumptions about prehistoric urbanism, technology, and social complexity in Oceania. It demonstrates that societies long considered primitive could accomplish monumental construction, complex spatial organization, and symbolic urban planning. The city's artificial islets, canals, and basalt walls speak to human ingenuity, persistence, and vision. Yet they also resist easy explanation, leaving an aura of mystery that has captivated explorers, scholars, and locals alike. As the sun sets over the lagoon, casting long shadows across the stone walls and shimmering water, Nan Madol appears simultaneously timeless and fragile. Its ruins testify to human ambition, creativity, and adaptation, yet they also remind us of the impermanence of civilizations and the secrets lost to time. and standing quietly among the submerged platforms and silent canals, one cannot help but wonder what knowledge, traditions, and intentions were embedded in the stones of Nan Madol, and how much of this enigmatic city, suspended between water and earth, remains waiting to be understood. From the water-woven islets and basalt walls of Nan Madol, where civilization reached extraordinary heights upon the Pacific Lagoon, we now descend beneath the earth to the heart of Cappadocia, Turkey, to explore a city built not in open air but in darkness, carved meticulously from soft volcanic rock. Derinkuyu Underground City is a labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and passageways stretching dozens of meters below the Anatolian plateau, a place where human ingenuity meets the enigma of survival, secrecy, and architectural mastery. Approaching Derinkuyu, the landscape is deceptively tranquil. Rolling hills of tufa rock rise under a soft Anatolian sky, dotted with fairy chimneys and eroded formations shaped by millennia of wind and water. Yet beneath the surface lies a vast subterranean metropolis, a city hidden from view, whose scale becomes apparent only when one begins to descend through narrow staircases and low archways into the cool, shadowed corridors below. Stone walls, carved with precision, extend in seemingly endless tunnels, leading to rooms whose purposes range from living quarters and kitchens to stables, storage rooms, chapels, and even ventilation shafts that ensure airflow through the entire complex. Derinkuyu could house as many as 20,000 people along with their livestock, a staggering feat of engineering considering its construction in ancient times, possibly as early as the 8th century BCE, though later modifications suggest use and expansion well into the Byzantine era. The city's design is both functional and defensive. Massive stone doors, carved to roll into place, could seal off sections in minutes, providing protection from invaders. Narrow corridors, sudden drops, and dead-end passages amplify confusion for any intruder. Every aspect of Derinkuyu, from water wells sunk hundreds of meters to storage chambers stocked for months, reflects a civilization that understood both the necessities of survival and the complexities of subterranean living. The engineering raises profound questions. How did ancient builders excavate such deep, stable tunnels without collapsing sections? How did they manage ventilation and water access in a city so vast and layered? The precision of walls and ceilings, the deliberate design of chambers, and the organization of the city into multiple subterranean levels suggest not ad hoc construction but careful planning over generations. Could this city have been purely a refuge, a secret sanctuary in times of war, or was it also a place of daily life, commerce, and ritual for an extended period? Scholars often emphasize Derinkuyu's defensive purpose, pointing to historical invasions and conflicts in Anatolia, from Assyrian incursions to Byzantine pressures. Yet even with these practical explanations, the city's scale and sophistication evoke wonder. The rock-cut chapel, complete with religious iconography, suggests spiritual as well as pragmatic concerns. Stables carved into bedrock demonstrate careful integration of human and animal needs. Communal kitchens and food storage areas indicate that life here was not merely temporary. It could be sustained underground for months, perhaps even years. Speculative theories naturally arise from such a site. Some have suggested that Derinkuyu and neighboring underground cities, such as Kaimakli, were part of an extensive network connecting entire regions beneath Cappadocia, creating a hidden civilization beneath the visible landscape. Could the scale of these subterranean structures hint at a society that mastered underground architecture far earlier than previously believed? Fringe interpretations occasionally suggest astronomical or esoteric purposes for certain chambers, positing alignment with celestial cycles or ritualistic functions unknown to mainstream archaeology. While these remain speculative, they underscore the aura of mystery that surrounds a city built to hide, yet also to endure. The experience of descending into Derinkuyu is both humbling and disorienting. The air is cool and carries the faint scent of stone and history. Shadows stretch across smooth walls and carved steps, while faint echoes accentuate the sense of scale and depth. As one moves through the narrow corridors, passing stone doors, ventilation shafts, and rooms layered atop each other, it is easy to imagine the lives that once pulsed here. Families huddled in chambers during raids, children learning the passageways by heart, priests performing rituals in subterranean chapels. And yet, all of this life is gone, leaving only the silent stones and the faint whisper of the past. Despite extensive study, many aspects of Derinkuyu remain unresolved. Who conceived of the original design, and how was knowledge of construction transmitted across generations? Was the underground city always a place of refuge, or did it also serve administrative or ceremonial roles? How did societies coordinate the excavation, ventilation, and sustenance of a population so large in complete darkness? Each answer seems to uncover deeper questions, inviting us to confront the ingenuity, ambition, and survival strategies of a civilization that chose to live beneath the earth. Derinkuyu challenges assumptions about human adaptability and resilience. It demonstrates that architecture can extend beyond the visible world, that communities can flourish where light is scarce, and that survival and ingenuity often go hand in hand. It is a testament to the human capacity to manipulate environment and space, creating complex social structures while hidden from the view of the world above. As the final rays of sunlight filter through the entrance, casting long shadows into the labyrinthine tunnels, one is left with a sense of awe, both for the ingenuity required to build such a city and for the mysteries that still lie within its depths. And standing in the quiet corridors, listening to the faint echoes of footsteps long vanished, one cannot help but wonder what stories, knowledge, and lives remain buried in Derinkuyu, and how much of its vast subterranean world remains hidden, waiting to be rediscovered beneath the surface of history itself. From the labyrinthine corridors of Derinkuyu, where entire civilizations carved their lives into the earth, we journey southward along the Nile to the sun-scorched plains of Sudan, where the sands stretch endlessly under a blazing sky, and the ruins of Meroe rise in solemn clusters. Here, the Nubian pyramids stand in quiet grandeur, smaller than their Egyptian counterparts, yet no less enigmatic, their steep-sided forms marking the burial grounds of kings, queens, and high officials of the ancient kingdom of Kush. But beyond the visible pyramids, beneath layers of stone and earth, lie internal chambers whose construction, purpose, and secrets continue to baffle scholars and explorers alike. Approaching Meroe, the first impression is striking. A series of pyramids, their faces worn by centuries of wind and sand, rise from the desert floor like sharp geometric silhouettes against the horizon. The air shimmers with heat, carrying whispers of a civilization that thrived for over a millennium, from approximately 800 BCE to 350 CE, and whose influence stretched along the Nile and deep into the African interior. While the exterior of the pyramids signals funerary purpose, the interiors reveal a far more intricate and puzzling design: corridors, chambers, and passageways meticulously arranged, yet often cramped, angled, or concealed in ways that defy simple explanation. The Nubian pyramids are constructed of rubble core and mud brick facings, a technique that allowed relatively rapid building yet presented challenges in stability and longevity. Within these pyramids, hidden chambers hold tombs, sarcophagi, and ritual spaces, some of which were sealed with precision stone blocks. Hieroglyphic inscriptions and reliefs occasionally adorn the walls, providing tantalizing glimpses into the religious beliefs, royal lineages, and mortuary practices of the Kushite elite. Yet, for every chamber explored, questions multiply. Why are some rooms oriented in unexpected directions? Why do certain pyramids contain multiple concealed spaces, often with narrow access points? And what motivated the architects to invest so much effort in structures that, on the surface, seem deceptively simple? Archaeologists suggest that these chambers served practical and spiritual functions. They were intended to protect the deceased and their treasures, preserve sacred rituals, and facilitate the soul's journey in the afterlife. Yet the precision and variation in chamber layouts hint at knowledge that may surpass what has been fully understood. Some pyramids have labyrinthine inner passages, with blocked corridors and secondary chambers whose purpose remains uncertain. Did these hidden rooms serve as decoys, security measures, or ritual spaces designed to confound grave robbers or protect spiritual secrets? Or were they symbolic, embodying cosmological or theological concepts yet to be decoded? The transportation and assembly of massive stone blocks and mud brick cores also provoke fascination. How were the interiors carefully constructed without collapsing the steep, narrow exteriors? Some chambers feature corbelled ceilings, intricate angles, and precision-fitted blocks, remarkable feats given the technology of the time. Was there an unrecorded system of scaffolding, levers, or surveying that allowed the builders to achieve such accuracy? And why, in a region where monumental architecture was often exposed to harsh weather and occasional flooding, were some pyramids constructed with internal layouts that seem more intricate than the external profile would suggest? Speculative theories abound, often fueled by the relative obscurity of the site compared to the pyramids of Egypt. Some suggest that the hidden chambers may have encoded esoteric knowledge, astronomical markers, or ritual formulas lost to history. Others propose that these spaces were deliberately designed to mystify future generations, embedding the power and authority of the Kushite rulers in architecture as much as in politics. While mainstream scholarship emphasizes practical, funerary, and ceremonial explanations, the sense of intentional secrecy and deliberate complexity leaves room for wonder, suggesting a civilization both highly organized and deeply invested in symbolic expression. Visiting Meroe today is an experience of contrast and quiet awe. The pyramids rise from the golden desert like time-worn sentinels, their shadows stretching across sand and scrub. Entering the inner chambers, one encounters cool darkness, echoing with the faint imprint of human activity. Narrow passages open into burial rooms, stone sarcophagi, and small alcoves, some nearly inaccessible. The air carries the scent of dust, earth, and history. Standing within these hidden spaces, it is easy to imagine the rituals that once took place here: priests reciting sacred texts, attendants preparing offerings, and the enduring presence of kings and queens whose names and deeds shaped an empire now largely forgotten. Despite centuries of excavation, many questions remain. How many chambers remain undiscovered beneath the sands of Meroe? What relics, inscriptions, or artifacts lie hidden, waiting to reveal further insight into the kingdom of Kush? And what motivated the architects to blend practicality with mystery, creating internal layouts that simultaneously served the living, the dead, and perhaps something beyond mortal understanding? The Nubian pyramids at Meroe remind us that ancient civilizations possessed not only technical skill, but an understanding of psychology, symbolism, and secrecy. They reflect a culture capable of monumental construction, intricate spatial organization, and ritual sophistication, all while leaving an air of inscrutable mystery. These pyramids are more than tombs. They are enduring enigmas, monuments to a people whose knowledge and intentions are partly visible, yet largely hidden beneath the stone and sand. As the sun begins its descent, casting long golden shadows across the desert and illuminating the sharp edges of the pyramids, the inner chambers of Meroe seem to whisper from the past. Their silent stone walls beckon the curious, the patient, and the imaginative to explore, to wonder, and to question. And standing at the entrance to these hidden spaces, one is left to contemplate. What secrets, rituals, and knowledge lie buried within the Nubian pyramids of Meroe? And how much of this ancient world remains concealed beneath stone, waiting for those who seek to uncover it?